Hey everyone, and welcome to this fourth edition of the Speed Chess Grand Prix, where we will be finding a qualifier for the Speed Chess Championship. My name is Jon Ludwig Hammer, and I'm joined by Kedi I swear I practice it so much. Tsatsalashvili. Is that
there you
good?
go. That's it.
And we're going to be guiding you through today's tournament. But in order to do that, we're going to need to know the format. Today we're going to have 10 rounds in a Swiss tournament. It's going to be 3 minutes on the clock, each player getting an additional second per move they make. But that is no guarantee that they will avoid losing on time, or at the very least making a mistake because of the time pressure. The top 8 players in the Swiss tournament will make it through to a knockout stage. And in the end, they are rewarded points in our Grand Prix system according to where they place. These points are as follows. It's 15 points for winning the knockout stage. So this is important. Once you get into the top 8 places, it doesn't matter how you did in the Swiss, because the Grand Prix points are awarded according to your placement in the knockout. First place 15 points, and moving down as we go further down the standings. But there are some other things to look forward to for the Swiss participants. And that is the prizes, and they are significant. It's 2,500 for the first place finisher.
That's right. In total, we have $10,000. The prize fund weekly, and there are prizes for many places. Second place will get also $1,800, and so on, up to 16th place. That's going to get $100. And there's also prizes for top female players. That's $500, and top streamer as well. That's the same $500. And the winner of knockout system will get $1,000, not 10,000. And we can take a look at the standings so far and check out who is leading here.
And it's actually Jeffrey Zhang. After only 3 of the 4 tournaments, he has already knocked it out of the park. He has already won this Speed Chess Grand Prix, and he's by doing so, he has qualified to the Speed Chess Championship. So today we're mostly going to be playing for the very significant prize pool and see if anyone can even remotely match Jeffrey's stability in those consistent top placements. He made 2 second places and 1 first place. It's incredible consistency.
That's right. Himself, Jeffrey, he's playing USA Championship, and we believe that he will not be joining the tournament today, and he doesn't really need that too, right? He's most probably already qualified.
Yeah, very impressive. Completely ruining some of the excitement for today's tournament, but well done to him. However, it is not the last chance people will have to qualify to the Speed Chess Championship. Titled players will get one last shot at a spot for the Speed Chess Championship main event during the upcoming Super Swiss weekend. So make sure to tune in October 16th to October 17th for the 15-round Swiss and knockout tournament starting at 10 a.m. Pacific on Chess TV.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of excitements are ahead of us, and yeah, also today we have a lot of prize fund. Now let's take a look at the schedule of the Grand Prix, Speed Chess Grand Prix. And then we can actually we can take a break right now, and we can come back with the games because they will start to play pretty soon.
And we're back. And we got a players list here. And Hikaru Nakamura is in the house. He's coming in to swoop all that juicy prize money. And he's going to be the pre-tournament favorite.
Absolutely. Although he's already qualified for his interest, today is the prize fund, which is really nice for just, for some hours, one day event. Why not? And we also have very interesting players. Some of them are well known. And also we have well-known streamers. Do you have any player that you would like to follow, that we can choose one game and we can follow that? Oh, here we have Hikaru's game.
Hikaru has started already with the white pieces. What do I think about this? I always dislike this situation. If I end up with one of those pawns in the middle that cannot be protected by other pawns, that's just, I really hate that. So I would favor Hikaru's position here.
Yep, looks like he's going to trade the bishop, and he's attacking now d5. Do you think black should push d4 just to get rid of this pawn?
Oh, definitely. Whenever you have a chance to get rid of that pawn in the middle, you just push it forward and open up. The problem is Hikaru has gotten himself the bishop pair. And I am a huge fan of those two bishops working together. And that's going to keep the advantage in his hands. And what he did now was actually very instructive. Part of the advantage of having the bishop pair is that you can trade off your bishop at an opportune moment. And right now, Hikaru has gone from having the advantage of the bishop pair to having this attack down the c file towards the pawn on c6. Now, this pawn is isolated. It cannot be defended by other pawns. And so black is in a situation where you have to keep that under protection all the time.
That's right. And I love how Hikaru here plays knight e4. The knight is going on c5, or maybe even rook can go on c5. Just this pawn will be stopped here on c6. And this pawn is even weaker than d5, isolated pawn was.
Yeah, and black just gives it up. Rokoko has just said goodbye to that c6 pawn, and Hikaru doesn't even take it. He's just saying that pawn is going nowhere. My knight is out on the edge of the board. I don't want to just win a pawn. I want to have my pieces in perfect placements as well. So he goes to improve his positioning before capturing that c6 pawn. Classy play from Hikaru.
That's beautiful. Now there is a little trap here. If black goes with rook c8 to guard c6, white can play rook d1, and this rook will help knight to get on d6. And there was a fork. So for this reason, black just kept the rook on d file. And after rook d1, now black has to make a decision where to bring this queen.
Yeah, and the problem for black is that knight getting into the d6 square, that's very much in play. The queen had to make sure that she didn't go to a square where that knight could create a fork on black's queen and black's rook. And so the queen had to just step away from the protection close to black's pawn. Hikaru has captured the pawn under favorable circumstances. And he's looking very good to win this game.
That's right. Here we have rook e2. Black is also trying to activate the rook, get this rook on the second rank, and knight just got on d6 right now. What is his plan? Maybe he plans to play knight e4 at some point to get rid of the knight, and d7 rook was hanging.
Yeah, no, Hikaru has lost complete control of the situation. The black rook infiltrating into white's half of the board was very scary. And with the queen joining a potential attack as well, Hikaru has actually just given up not only the pawn on the side of the board, but he also felt forced to make the queen trade, which has completely ruined the pawns in front of white's king. It's a shocking turnaround for Hikaru. He must be very frustrated with what looked to be a very nice position. It's now white trying to salvage something out of this game.
That's true. White still has here the edge on the clock. 1 minute and 12 seconds versus 45 seconds. The increment is only 1 second. So at some point, Black might even start to play on increment. But for now, the position is so interesting. Black managed to got the knight on f4, very active, and look at the king also on f5.
Yeah, but in order to make this happen, Black actually gave up one of their pawns. So Hikaru is back in the driver's seat. Whether it's going to be enough to win, difficult to tell. But it's back to Hikaru being the aggressor in this game. And I really like Rook Oko there going back and forth with his knight, making sure that Hikaru is aware of the detriments to White's king position.
That's right. And now the pawns are on the one flank, and this makes things a bit complicated for White to win a game, and less pieces are still on the board.
That's always what you want to do when you're defending. When it's not looking good, try and get pawns off the board. The fewer pawns, the better chances you have of surviving. And that's precisely what Black is doing here.
That's right. And now the rook is chasing knight, and the king should be equal at like normal game, classical game. But now time is the most important, and Black is down to 17 seconds.
Should be is easy to say when you're playing against Hikaru Nakamura. He always finds some way to trick you. And Black has got to be nervous in this situation. Having achieved a good position, you don't want to be the one to spoil it down at the end. And I feel like Black really should get their king away from the corner. Black should be very careful with that king. And a good decision there to get the king back into safety. There was some concern that the king would be trapped on the edge, but that has now been dealt with.
Yeah, Rikaka plays really good this game. It's really impressive. Oh, Hikaru has some difficulties. He took a lot of time to figure out how to improve the position, and he's trying to get the king somewhere, maybe in the center, e3, e4.
Trying, but not really succeeding. So far, a great defensive game from Black. Now also getting the rook attacking towards the edge of the board. But look at that maneuver from Hikaru. Hikaru targeting the Black pawn in conjunction with a knight coming in, trying to make a fork. White really wants to create a fork with the knight against the king and rook. And it's so tricky making sure that to avoid that, Black decides to go into a pawn end game. Honestly,
that's draw, right?
I think so. It's too complicated for me to tell at a distance. Yes, it is a draw.
This is a draw.
Very good play from Black, who secures a draw against the mighty Hikaru in the first round. Congratulations. Well done.
Rukaka, whoever Rukaka is a great master. He plays under USA flag. Well done. That was really impressive game. And also the end game technique in the end, that was simply beautiful, right?
Yeah, no, that was a tricky end game. And Hikaru at some point was creating a lot of traps. But, you keep your cool in the important situations, and you get rewarded for it. A fantastic result here.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well done, Arikaka. That's a really good start. He just stood there for Hikaru in a worse position and achieved a draw. And here we have the second round. For now, we have 129 players, and we can pick one game and just to focus on that.
And here we have an audience favorite. It's Robert Hess, normally known to be in the commentary chair. The roles have been reversed. He's playing, and he's actually playing for a reason, I think, because he is signed up for a very important tournament, the Grand Swiss in Latvia. and later in the month. So this is probably part of his training regime. And he goes using the Bobby Fischer, his New York compatriot, his favorite opening, the 1e4 King's Pawn.
Yeah, that's a really good news for chess players to have the opportunity to play over the board tournament. The Grand Swiss will start very soon, and we're gonna see a lot of excitement games. And you think that this tournament might be part of his preparation and trainings, right?
I think for sure. I think Robert is making extra effort getting some practice games in before his important tournament. And here he's playing against Mishanik, a very, very strong player from Russia with a rating north of 3,000. We've seen a Sicilian defense. White hasn't really managed to get any pawns controlling the center. So if anyone has better central control, it's Black, with one pawn pointing in towards the d4 square and the other pawn pointing in towards the d5 square. The advantage White has, on the other hand, is that you can try to get your queen into a promising position. And that's what Robert is doing right now. His knight is putting pressure on Black's bishop. The bishop will have to move, and then White's queen will enter the game, pointing down towards the pawn on g7, forcing that pawn to move up the board, and then you try to exploit the weaknesses it leaves behind. Notice how every Black pawn on the right-hand side, they're on a light square, and
That's
pawns
right.
on the light squares only control light squares. So Robert is going to be trying to exploit Black's lack of dark squared control over the next couple of moves.
That's right. White has to be careful with move f5. Right now, this might be Black's idea to win a piece. So for this reason, he just steps back with the queen on h3. And
I like this move. This is the move I would have made.
To bring the bishop on the dark squares, either h6 or hg5.
Wow, aggressive play from the Russian here, moving the pawn forward, attacking White's knight. But even though the knight is attacked because it was in a good position, the knight actually finds an even better position, moving forward on the board, now attacking the pawn on e6 in conjunction with White's bishop. The Black knight also on the warpath here, moving forward, both attacking and defending at the same time. If I were Robert, what would I do here? I would probably, it's a tricky situation. Maybe move the queen up. That's a risky move by Robert. The knight comes in, takes out on c1. The protection of White's knight was eliminated, but Robert has calculated further. I think he did this on purpose. His argument is that the knight on c1 is now trapped and it's not going to go anywhere while White's knight has gobbled up a pawn.
That's right. That's right. The knight has e2 square, but in that case, rook will come on e file where the king is still in the center. Black never managed to castle yet.
Yeah, but what now? The knight is under attack. The knight has nowhere safe to move, or does it? How about we move the knight, give a check on Black's king, and then we recapture the Black knight. It's a very complicated position, and you can tell from the amount of time the players have used so far. The knight is getting out of its cage. Is this the end for Robert? Can he save himself as Black's knight brilliantly makes a run for it? If the White bishop is to take the Black knight, then you also lose the protection of your own knight up the board. So I think Robert has to give a check with his... Oh no, actually the White knight is defended.
I also missed. I was thinking rook d1 here to pin, but in fact, this is really good. Now maybe bishop comes on c4, controls this diagonal, and they know there are some tricks like knight c7 check.
Yeah, not just some tricks. I think this is almost game over. The black king is in extreme danger, despite the queens being exchanged off the board. And I think maybe knight to c7. Ooh, it's such a tricky position, and the players are getting so low on time. Robert chooses just to grab a pawn because life is better with an extra pawn, and then he grabs another pawn.
Yeah, and you know, if we get the opposite color bishop position, then can be so tough for black to play with limited time on the clock.
Robert Hess with a master class so far. He's up 2 pawns, but time is running out. The knight in the center attacking the bishop. Robert at this point just making sure that everything is protected. Hess is about to show why there's no chess without Hess. He's about to win this game.
That's right. Knight just got on d5. Very strong centralized knight there. And here we have h3 just to make sure that there is no problem on the back ring. And here we have knight e3, offers the rook trade to the opponent.
White really needs to get the king involved, but that is the next item on the agenda for Mr. Hess. And now he's he's just gonna shut down everything on the right-hand side. And then he's going to focus his attention on the left-hand side instead. I don't love the decision he made there. I feel like white should have captured that black pawn when you had the chance. Black's bishops are just so tricky to deal with in these sort of circumstances.
That's right. If king goes too far, there might be also some ideas like bishop h3. That's so annoying. And white cannot capture this bishop.
Yeah, and Robert is about to lose. Robert is about to lose. He was up 2 pawns. Everything was looking good, but his pieces were just not getting away from those bottom squares. However, now he did get the knight out. That was a mistake from black, allowing the white knight to kind of get out of jail where it was. And this is a draw. This is a draw. White can capture here and just move the king back. Moving the king back is a drawing position. And also you could take the pawn. I didn't even realize that the black couldn't protect the pawn. And yet again, the game we follow is a very hard fought draw. Hess will feel disappointed. He let the Russian get out of jail, get out of a bad situation there. But honestly, it also showcased how powerful the bishops can be when you don't find good squares for your pieces. And black came very close to winning that game despite being 2 pawns down.
That's right. It was a good demonstration of pair of bishop, even though that white had extra 2 pawns. This is the next game, and here we have Chess Warrior against Alex Trepishko from Russia, and we have the rook end game. Seems like this game has been ended already.
Yeah, white has won it. There's no way to stop the pawn now that it's being helped by the white rook in the center, guiding it forward. And here's another one that's decided. It's Anamaya winning with the white pieces against a higher rated opponent. She has the king attacks the bishop. The bishop needs to move. But once the bishop moves, it's okay for white to push the pawn forward and become a new queen on the edge of the board.
That's right. Seems like a good technique from Anamaya, who's trying to get two prizes here. There's prize for best female player and also best streamer. And as I know, she's streaming right now. The next round will start soon. I'll quickly check if we have some games still in progress. This seems to be ended. Okay,
here's one. But there it goes. It's a draw by stalemate. Sometimes having an extra pawn is not enough. the big boss showing off the boss moves to secure a draw. And that may have been the final game of the round.
That's right. The third round will start soon. Today we have 10 rounds, and then soon after that, we're going to have the knockouts games. And yeah, we'll start soon. There are many players with 100% scores you can see on the board. In fact, there are 12 players, right?
A minimum.
Yeah.
Actually, on the list, we have 15 right now with 2 out of 2 score, and probably more down the list. We haven't gotten far enough into the tournament to see anyone running away with it. But we have seen that Hikaru Nakamura, the pre-tournament favorite, he was held to a draw in the first game. And it just goes to show that there are no easy matchups in this tournament.
That's right. That's right. And we have seen such a beautiful technique by Hikaru's opponent in the first round. The third round has been already started, right? And I'll just choose one game.
What are your criteria for choosing the games?
I don't know. I just choose the players that I can recognize. So here we have Tigra. That's Boris Savchenko from Russia against Jospin from Peru, who is quite active streamer. He streams a lot nowadays, and who's also active player of Title Tuesdays and Arena Kings. So I just recognize his name and just click there immediately. What do you think about the position?
It's tricky. We're about to see a repetition of moves. Both players have moved their queen back and forth once. If they do it again, the game will be declared a draw. And it's difficult to say who is better here. Black has their king in the center, which normally is not a good thing. But on the other hand, I prefer Black's pawn structure in that White has one pawn in the middle that's standing all by its own, and that can be a target to attack in the long run. However, it's easier to attack such weak pawns when the queens have been exchanged off, because right now, Black has to be concerned about the king's safety. And in fact, that was a brilliant move by Tigra earlier, where the queen attacked both the knight on the left-hand side and the pawn on the right-hand side. White's queen has been able to capture a really important pawn, also giving a check on Black's king. The whole situation seems like it's crumbling for Joseph.
That's right. White just won a pawn, and now White is taking some time because maybe he's considering rook f8 move. Although after that move, White can simply capture this and then get the knight and then the rook. This might be worthy for White. So instead of this, we have bishop g4. The pawn was under attack, and rook e8 was played really fast here by Black.
Yeah, I think it's a hopeless position for Black. Probably should have agreed to that back and forth with the queens, because trading off the queens that was such a crucial moment. With the queens on the board, Black's king was not having a good time, and we see that situation here. White infiltrating once again, a rook coming in to capture yet another pawn. White now is up 2 pawns in addition to those pawns that have been captured are kind of also the pawns that were doing the main job of defending Black's king. So it's not only about the pawns, it's also that for every pawn that disappears, Black's king feel less safe.
That's right. That's right. And for a reason, Black did not capture these 2 rooks for a queen, because the king on d6 would be just exposed. So instead of that, Black went for knight b6 to keep the game going on. White played bishop e2 and rook h4 is on the board. Do you think at some point White can try to push pawns like h5, h6 to create a pass pawn?
Well, I think in a position like this, when you're up 2 pawns, don't make it too complicated. Don't
Mhm.
overthink it. And I think that's kind of what Tigra is doing right now. That like you have such a nice position. There's
Yeah.
no need to really spend this much time. Just make sure your pawns are protected, and somehow you're gonna win with 2 pawns more than your opponent. The only way you don't win is by getting low on time. You
That's
make a
right.
mistake, and suddenly it can all be turned around. And we saw that in the last round with Hess being
Mhm.
up 2 pawns but being low on time, making a couple of bad decisions, and suddenly it was all turned around on him, even though he was up 2 pawns. And it's a similar thing Jospem is hoping for right now, that he can just kind of stay alive until white gets really low on time, and then you go for the kill and try to create some complications and create some difficult decisions.
That's right. It's indeed a very good strategy. Right now, the queen is hanging on e5. Maybe white's next move is to push e5 to open up the position even more, or even knight d5 looks really nice to
Well, the queen has
sacrifice
nowhere to
this
go.
knight.
The queen
Oh,
has nowhere to go.
queen is
So
trapped. Oh, queen is trapped in the middle of the game. Look at this beautiful game. Wow, nice. And here we have a
and
resignation after check on f7.
the king is in check from white's queen. The king has to prioritize getting to safety. The problem is that while you're doing that, the white rook will take black's queen and it's game over.
That's right. They're also quite fast game, right? Um, we
Which is
have.
good news for us, because then we're going to find some games
That's
where we
true.
catch more than just the last move.
Let's get in here. Here we have Anton Danchenko from Russia against Alexander Bortnik from Ukraine. Here we have this position. Black has an extra exchange. Do you think white can survive here somehow?
No, I don't like white's chances here. The rook is better than a bishop, but it's not only a rook. Black also has an extra pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And Demchenko, who actually surprised many when he won the European Championship not a long time ago. He is, wow. Did you see that? Black made a huge blunder where he didn't actually he gave up the pawn on the edge of the board, and white captured that pawn, but actually the mistake was much bigger. White could have captured black's rook with their bishop. A huge opportunity missed there for Demchenko, and it goes to show that even top players like Bortnik make some big mistakes in this blitz time control.
Absolutely. But this game ended happily for him, and black managed to win. Maybe we can find some other game. So far, I see like 4 games in progress. Let's get at the game of wonderful time and then loss.
And the black rooks working together with an extra knight.
Oh,
wow. He blunders the knight. I was about to say there's absolutely no hope for white in this game, but now it's a completely different situation. The white king way up on the board is actually contributing in an attack against the white king, and black, having given up a knight for no reason, basically has to just go for the draw and get out of this horrendous mistake they made.
That's right. Here, white did not capture the pawn f7. I think it was still possible then to capture a7. White was just worried too much about the king's situation, and this game has been ended with 3 times repetition, and here we have a draw.
We're witness to some amazing blunders, but it goes to show even the very best players in the world, they're not immune to this disease. It's when you get low on time, that's like the optimal opportunity to make some big mistakes, and it's costly in this tournament considering how big the prize pool is. And
That's
we're moving
right.
on to the fourth round. No break for these players. And Shield and Sviridov are two of the
Yeah.
players on 3 points out of 3.
In total, we have so far 9 players with 100% scores, and these 2 players are for the moment sharing first and second places. And here we have this position. I think it's from Karakan. Is it from Karakan Defense?
It looks like the Alyekin or Scandinavian to me. What's worth noting is that White has these unopposed pawns in the middle. So White is controlling a large chunk of the area in the middle of the board. But Black tries to claim that although Black's position is not aggressive, it's very solid. It's very difficult to break down. So I think we're in for a long strategic game.
That's right. But at some point, the game will get very complicated as the time is running on the clock and they have only 1 second increment. That's not too much. And for now, do you think White can take advantage on open the file, something like Rook D3 or D1? Oh, 94, that looks good also.
Yeah, White definitely can exploit the fact that White's pawns are just more aggressively placed than Black's. Sometimes that can be a disadvantage because the opponent's pieces kind of infiltrate behind your pawns. But in this circumstance, I think White has a well-placed pieces and it is in a position where pushing the pawns forward can actually be advantageous. And now right. White's knight is getting ready to jump into the heart of Black's position.
I had a suggestion here, like before bishop g3, to take this pawn, and when Black captures this pawn, rook d5, that allows knight to play on f6 next move and queen h7, checkmate. But White played bishop g3, and here we have this position. Still looks quite good for White with the knight on d6 and Black's pawn on c6 and now on e6.
Yeah, Black's only hope is trying to say that the pawn on d6, the white pawn that basically has gone way behind enemy lines, Black is trying to cut that pawn off from its white counterparts. And he's doing that right now. The pawn is blocking the bishop's defense of the pawn. In addition, the Black knight was blocking the rook's defense. And Black actually unsuccessfully here manages
the rook is
to
hanging
get
on
rid
e8,
of the pawn.
right?
Yeah,
rook d6 was not possible there.
But once again, Black tries to surround this white pawn. And it's very close to working out. The problem is that White strikes towards this pawn chain, the Black pawns protecting each other up the board. That has to be stopped. White attacking the Black pawns with their pawn, trying to open up so that the bishop is able to give protection to its runaway pawn. And right now, it looks as though it's about to work because Black took a lot of time thinking there and decided there's no way to get out of that trouble. And Black felt forced going into this endgame down a pawn.
That's right. White has really good chances here with the bishop and the rook. With extra b-pawn here, White can try to create a pass pawn on the queen side and push hard to win the game. And time situation looks like more or less equal for both players. They both have 1 minute and 30 seconds. But now Black just played knight f4. And knight is also so tricky in the end game. Knight can make so much damage in the position. I think White has to be also careful here.
Yeah, we've seen in the last couple of games, it can turn around real quickly. And with the knight, it's even grandmasters sometimes struggle with how the knight kind of jumps around and causes all sorts of trouble and forks and whatnot. Shield is going to be trying to be very careful here. but it's his position to win.
Look at this now, knight f6. That creates a threat. Knight e4, fork three times, and white can also of course avoid that, but then king gets on d5, king gets activated, knight e4, and black is now dominating on the board, is creating h5, wins a rook. H5. Oh no,
H5,
even this is
that's
better.
such a tricky move. But this is also
even
good.
Yeah.
The knight we talked about does the damage. Being up a pawn is no guarantee you're going to win the game. The knight together with the rook has made a fork on white's king and rook, and it's actually turned around. And now it's black's game to win.
That's right. Well, 95 here, check, then pick up b2 pawn. He goes for rook f1, and maybe now he will play 95, rook g1, pick up g4 pawn, and this is going to be safe game for black. I don't believe this pawn can create so much of danger now.
I am never again in this tournament saying, oh, it looks like this player is winning because you're up a pawn for no good reason. That the knight's on its own. The knight actually making another fork. Black's knight coming to the rescue a second time, getting rid of white's bishop. And that went south quick. From being up a pawn in a good position, white's king got itself into trouble. The knight came in with the forks, attacking both the king and attacking the rook, and it's game over.
That's it. It was a beautiful game to demonstrate how tricky knight can be in the end game. Let's get to the next game. Which just ended in a draw. Exotic Princess against AD Forever. Yeah, this game was ended in a draw. Seems like a drawish, right? Just black cannot really get anything out of it. Maybe we can take another game. Okay. Oh, look at this one. 2 queens on the board.
Boom. Checkmate. The queen in the corner of the board, making the checkmate. 2 against 0. That is just not fair.
Well, let's take a look if we have some other games going on. But we also have a poll going on right now in the chat. And the question is, we will see someone get 9 out of 10 today. So guys, you can take a look at that predictions and vote according to your thoughts.
And speaking of 9 out of 10, in the standings, I saw a brief appearance from Hikaru Nakamura. He was on 3 points out of 4. So one of the questions for this poll then would be, can Hikaru win the rest of his games and get into 9 out of 10 score? That's going to be one of the storylines moving forward. But for now, the fourth round is over. We have 4 players. No, it's not over.
No, we have one still last game, and it's going to be a draw. I believe this is the last one. Yes, this is the last one. Yeah.
So a hard-fought draw there to end the 4th round. We're going to be taking a commercial break, and we'll be back with the 5th round in some minutes. Welcome back to week 4 of the Speed Chess Grand Prix. We're here with a tournament trying to find a qualifier for the Speed Chess Championship, which will start in November. And there's also significant prizes being fought for here in the Swiss portion. And it's 4 players so far with 4 wins in a row.
Yeah, that's right. The question is if anyone can manage to get at least 9 points out of 10. There was the question in our predictions. We're gonna learn about that soon, and the games will start also soon. The format of the event is that after 10 rounds, we're gonna have top 8 players, and those top 8 players will play knockout tournament right after. So,
and I can see on the standings that we have chess royalty lurking in the shadows. Hikaru Nakamura in 15th place with 3 points out of 4, proving, number one, that there are no easy matchups in this tournament. He's already given away 2 draws, but it's also a call to action for those top 4 players that if you start making draws, if you stop winning, Hikaru is going to be there and he's going to be on your heels to get that first place finish.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. Let's see what he can do. Maybe he's the one who can get 9 points out of 10. I suggest to follow in this round Exotic Princess. That's Badr Jabba. He's having 3.5 points out of 4. Also having quite good tournament. He so far made just 1 draw.
Are you biased in this decision, being Georgian and Exotic Princess also being Georgian?
I'm just fan of his dancing. So right after the tournaments, he usually does the disco streams. So if he has a good tournament, he might do one of those disco streams too. So I like to see that. And yeah.
So we're hoping Exotic Princess wins in order to see some of them disco moves.
That's right.
But before that, he's going to need some good chess moves on the board as this 5th round gets going.
That's right. I'm a bit surprised that we don't have much of the players with 3.5 out of 4. They are just like 5, 6 players, right? Not too much. And
some wins can definitely get them up in the standings.
That's right. So the most important for now is to get in top 8 places, right? And here we have the game of Fiti or Rodant against Exotic Princess.
The trickiness of internet usernames. Very difficult to pronounce. We got ourselves a fairly equal position. Both players with rooks on the c-file. The c-file has no pawns. This is important to notice. So if the rooks end up pointing down there against each other, it's very likely everything is going to be traded off. However, White has turned their attention to the king side and has so many pieces on the right-hand side of the board. The bishops pointing in the direction of Black's king, also being assisted by their knight, and the queen may come into action as well. However, as we have seen the last couple of games, if you get low on time, bad things will happen. And right now, Torrent is struggling to find the right plan moving forward, and that's costing them a lot of time on the clock.
And he didn't really manage to find anything which will give immediate advantage, and he just went for rook d1 move. Probably he's looking forward to push e4, open up a bit of center. then that might be dangerous for Black King. What do you think about this move? Oh, it's not possible d4 pawn is hanging, right?
Yeah, no, it's a tricky position for both sides. A lot of pieces still on the board, which just increases the scope of possibilities. And sometimes, what?
There's some
Is
check.
this dangerous? There is a check.
Yet.
There is a check, but the king can hide away in the corner. Black's position is looking kind of cramped. Black's pieces are mainly still on the bottom rank of the board, which is usually not a good sign. However, Black is hoping to kind of just suddenly rush out in a counterattack against White's pieces. And so far, I would say this strategy has served Exotic Princess very well, because he is way up on time, like way up on time. A minute advantage at this stage is huge.
Yeah, that's right. And look at this. White also tries to improve the position, but so far for last few moves, there is no single change. And now White has played bishop e1, the bishop moves away, and White is ready to push e4 pawn. White has to open up the center, otherwise there's no point to move around on the king side. It's not enough forces there. And after e4, the things might change in favor for White.
It's a tense position still, but White's time management will be critiqued, is my prediction. This time management, we've seen it in the last couple of games. Even people being up one pawn, even people up 2 pawns have lost games because when the decimals appear on the screen, you get so stressed out and you make a mistake that turn the evaluation completely upside down. Now White actually goes for that pawn break in the center that you've been advocating, Katie.
Finally, I was feeling like maybe it's not so good a move. I should just let's leave alone this move. But here we have it, e4, and another piece got on the back rank. Bishop d8 was played to avoid knight b6 fork, and I like this knights in the center.
Black is up a pawn. White has sacrificed a pawn in the center to open up the game, to kind of display how dominant White pieces are in comparison with Black's. But on the other hand, then White has something to lose. If you don't really do anything in the next couple of moves, then you're just going to be down a pawn and you're going to lose actually, based on what we've seen so far, being up a pawn, not necessarily a good sign, but traditionally, that's a good thing. And White needs to strike right now with an attack.
Oh, 94. The knight is not hanging because in the end, the rook is also hanging on c1. So here we have some trades.
Yeah, it's a very tricky position, but both players getting very low on time. White sacrifices the queen. The White queen has been eliminated, but on the other hand, White got 2 rooks in exchange for it. And now the rook pointing in towards Black's queen. The bishop cannot move. And that means the bishop is about to be captured. It's 2 rooks and a bishop in return for the queen. The question is whether the Black queen can try to make a checkmate on White's king. There's a checkmate on White happening, and it's game over.
Checkmate.
It's game over. The checkmate comes in clutch to win it.
Way to go, Joby.
Having 2 rooks and a bishop for a queen, it doesn't help much when the queen alone together, helped by the Black knight, is able to give checkmate itself.
Do you think at this point White could save the game?
Yeah, I think White probably had bishop f4. But that's a difficult move to find. You have to give up the bishop to kind of lure Black's knight away from its attacking position. So it was a tricky situation. And as we predicted, those situations when you're low on time, even these players, the best players in the world, they're not able to escape these mistakes. And white falls victim to a checkmate in one move. Elementary, you may think, but strange things happen when time is low.
Wow, well done, Jobby. Well done. But there was a bit of luck as well, right? To give such a checkmate in the losing position. But yeah, we got it. Maybe we can take a look at Hikaru's game and check out how he's doing.
Hikaru needs some wins. We followed his game in round 1 where he made a draw with the white pieces. So he's already behind. And he needs to win a couple of games to catch up with the leaders.
Yeah, that's right. He already finished the game. He won this round. He got 4 out of 5. And for now, we have only 2 players with 100% score. And those are both Russian players, Sviridov, Valery, and Tigra. Then we have Exotic Princess and Infernal Sam with 4.5. And then we have a lot of players with 4 out of 5.
It's getting within striking distance. Hikaru Nakamura up to 12th place. It goes to show how tricky it is. Hikaru, before this round, he was number 15. After winning a game, he only gained a couple of placements in our standings. And here we are watching the 2 players who are the only ones with a full perfect score so far. And it's Tigra with the white pieces trying to punish Black's Alyekin defense. The Black Knight being chased around the board in the center early on, but hoping that the aggression of White's pawns will be punished eventually later on.
Yeah, that there are several openings like this one is just so much against of chess, basic rules of chess. But somehow, it's still the game is on. There are some ideas for Black, there are some ideas for White, and seems like okay for Black this position, right?
Well, Black is getting squeezed a little bit. The white pawns definitely more aggressive than their Black counterparts. And Black has some idea here now to maneuver the knight in a position to attack White's pawn on d4. What Black is arguing here is that the white pawn on d4 cannot be protected by a white pawn because its buddy on the side has already rushed into Black's half of the board. And then White apparently here thinks they have to be very aggressive in order to make sure that this Black counterplay doesn't arrive. And the pawn move in front of your own king, moving the pawn 2 squares forward, that is a sign of extreme aggression and the sign that we're going to be seeing a real interesting game moving forward.
Yeah, I love this move G4. As you mentioned earlier, Black might wanted to bring the knight on e7, then on f5, and to attack this weakness over here. And White just stopped that idea and also, started to push the pawn here on the king side, where White can also attack the king. And look at this, then he pushed before and he's trying to play on both flanks. How do you feel about this? Is that a good strategy to try to play on both sides?
Yeah, it's very ambitious. Normally you have one side where you're better, the opponent often better on the opposite flank. But here White is saying I can be better on the left side and on the right side. It's a risky strategy, no doubt. The white pawns cannot move backwards. That's the problem with pawns. Once you push them forward, there's no going back. And that's basically the strategy. Sviridov has been using this entire tournament. I remember we watched him a couple of rounds ago, and he had the same opening, trying to just go easy from the get-go and try and punish the opponent's aggressive play as we move on. And it's working for him. He has 5 points out of 5, and he's looking good in this one as well, because White's attack hasn't really happened. And now Black is ready to get the rook in the corner into the middle. The rook will then point towards White's pawn on d4. This is a pawn we already talked about, how this pawn is difficult to defend. And there's just a beautiful coordination of Black's pieces against this central pawn.
Yeah, and there's also a rook coming on d8. So for this reason, White just pushed this pawn, sacrificed an exchange over here. Black, of course, took that. And I kind of have a feeling that these all moves, like starting from bishop g2, was a blunder from White's side to give g4 pawn for d5 pawn, because then Black quickly managed to stop this pawn and fix this pawn on d4. And so far, this is the best what White could get from that position.
Yeah, I feel like moving the pawn in front of the king was, maybe it was a good move, but it was a very dangerous move. And White is being punished for their early aggression. Black proving that you don't need to be so aggressive with your pawns necessarily early on, because you can always kind of try the counter-attacking strategy. And so far, it seems to have worked beautifully for Sviridov.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Black's rating right now is 2,900, 2,955. He's very close to 3,000. All these players are so close to this rating. And do you think all these players do have their online opening repertoire that they only use while they're playing Blitz tournaments online?
That is definitely a possibility. The Alyekin defense that Black employed in this game has a dodgy reputation. But sometimes playing those dodgy openings in online Blitz is a good strategy, because since the players are so low on time, well, throughout the game, really, you have less time to kind of remember how you're supposed to play against openings that don't have the best reputation. So that could definitely be a strategy he chooses to employ. And I also see that Tom in the chat says that he used to play the Alyekin. And he must be loving what we're seeing on the board right now, because Sviridov is about to take the sole lead in this tournament with the Alyekin opening. However, despite Black being up a rook, this is not an easy situation, because Black felt forced to give away the knight, but then tries to go kind of recapture that knight with the rooks. However, White's pawn is now dangerously close to promoting, and I cannot see how Black is going to win this position. I'm just never going to say anyone is winning from now on, because, I mean, we have seen time and time again how tricky it is to get the wins, even when you seemingly have an amazing situation on the board. Wow, Black is about to try and get a new queen on the side, but the White king comes in clutch, getting rid of that last Black pawn, and it ends up in a draw. What a save from Tigra. He was down a whole rook there at one moment.
That's right. After F4 move, look at this one. He found King G4, King F5 move. King F7 was such a big mistake here, right?
Huge mistake from Black.
G7.
Could have just moved that king away from the bishop's diagonal. and then black would have won the game. But as it was, the knight ended up in a devastating pin. The bishop was able to capture the knight. Yes, the bishop was lost, but then the c pawn came to the rescue to save the game. And
what do you think about this one? From oh no, it's so bad. It's so bad. My point was after c6 to c7 to capture this and then to play this one, but it's still not working for some reason here, because this is a blunder. All right, rook comes on g1, check, and then white captures it. Okay.
If there's anything we've learned today, is that blunders are very easy to make. And with this result, there are no longer any players in this tournament with a perfect score. Looking at the standings, we see Hikaru Nakamura. He's up to 5th place. He's started the chase for the top players. Tigra, Exotic Princess, and Sviridov, those are the ones with 5.5 points out of 6.
Yeah, the games are ending. Let's get to this chess warrior against Drench. We have another weekend game, seems to be draw soon. And yeah.
Only the kings remain, no way forward there. And here with the white pieces, it's Mishanik who is getting that pawn on the side of the board. It's a free way down to becoming a new queen, and black resigns the game.
Yeah, I believe that was the last game for this round. And the next round will start soon. We can take a look at the standings and check out the situation. We have 3 players. Exotic Princess just joined the leaders, and look at this. Hikaru got on 4th position. So for now, things are getting more and more exciting.
Yeah, and those guys on the top scores, they've got to be so scared with Hikaru lurking behind. And in fact, one of them is playing Hikaru right now. It's Tigra who gets the dubious honor of being the one from the top scores, having to deal with the #1 blitz player on Chess.com.
Yeah, that's right. And here you have this position. Black just pushed d5. That allows white to push e5 pawn forward. But instead, this white goes with knight e5 move.
A tricky move from Hikaru, moving the knight forward where we thought the pawn was going to land. The knights up against each other. There's a trade, and then he pushes the pawn. This is very interesting from Hikaru, because normally when you have the most advanced pawns in the center, it's considered advantageous to have as many pieces on the board as possible, because having far advanced pawns often restrict the possible placements for your opponent's pieces. And the more pieces your opponent has, the more good squares you need to find for their placement. So very often we say that a space advantage in the center, you should try to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. But Hikaru goes against that word of wisdom, and now he's moving his queen up, pointing down towards black's king.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he just tried this to open up the road to f pawn, so f4, f5 would be faster, but he's not really going to do that for now. He got target, and that can be e6. Backward pawn, knight comes on d2, maybe later on f3 and e5. How black can here push?
Yeah, no, black has very aggressive pawns on the left-hand side. And I agree with you, Ketty. I think black should push c4, b4, a4. Just get those pawns up the board. There's no reason not to. I think the counterplay Hikaru is trying to generate down the e-file, where he's placed both his queen and rook, I'm not sure that is going anywhere. And as such, I kind of like black's position, because those aggressive pawns on the left-hand side, they're going to be able to do something.
Yeah, that's right. And White's plan here to get this knight on e5 and just to get more space advantage in the center just is, stopped by the bishop, and also knight on e4 controls everything. And black is ready to push the pawns. And here we have
And here we
b4.
go. The disadvantage of pushing this pawn first is that now white can kind of counter push. The move c4 is played by Hikaru. And now we got all the pawns grouped up together, getting ready for a major battle. We could see some exchanges being made right now. And it's very tricky to say how the position is going to look after it. In my mind, Tigra made a mistake with which pawn he chose to push forward first. I think Hikaru was smart to create this massive pawns up against each other formation. And I think white has a good position now.
Yep. Now knight can come on d4. He decides to bring to capture with a bishop, to aim in here on g7 pawn. At some point, white can also think of c takes d5 maybe, and to get this knight on d3, or just immediately queen d3. As now c4 pawn is not hanging, right? Because the knight on e4 is not guarded anymore, will not be guarded anymore, and seems like white is just coming back into the game.
And I can see on the standings we have up on the screen that there has been a draw between Sviridov and Exotic Princess. That means if Hikaru is able to win this game, he will be on equal amount of points as the first placed players so far.
Yeah, that's right. For now, I really prefer here white's position, as the isolated pawn is well blocked by the knight on d4, and white can try to move around with the pieces. g3 was played with the idea of bishop f4, and white don't really mind here to trade some of the pieces as well. For now, with f3, Hikaru is kicking the knight back, and seems like in next moves, the d5 pawn might be gone.
Yeah, and Hikaru kind of provoked white there. He's saying, oh, I dare you to sacrifice a piece, trying to eliminate all the pawns in front of my king. And after thinking about it, Tigra chooses to take up Hikaru on that challenge. He gives up his knight for 2 pawns. But if anyone is using the fact that those pawns disappeared, it's Hikaru himself. He's placed a rook pointing down towards the black king, and black thought that they were going to get an attack after eliminating the pawns defending the white king, when in fact it's Hikaru who's been using that to his advantage, pointing a rook towards black's king instead. But we see now black trying to eliminate as many pawns as possible from this board. Hikaru is up a knight in exchange for just 1 single pawn. It's still not very easy for him, though, because there are so few white pawns remaining. If Hikaru were to lose both of his remaining pawns, he will not be able to win despite having an extra knight.
That's right, but Hikaru's biggest advantage in this position is the time. Black has 5 seconds. White has 30 plus seconds still on the board, and this is huge time advantage that Hikaru is having in most of the games. And now, according to the evaluation bar, there is some tactics, and white is completely winning.
Yeah, Hikaru's done a good job of keeping everything protected. Right now, the black king kind of moving just back and forth. But for Hikaru, it's all about just protecting his own king. And Hikaru offers the trade of rooks. Black says no trades, but then Hikaru is able to both capture a black pawn on the left-hand side of the board. He also captures the black pawn, and with it goes the game. Hikaru provoked a piece sacrifice and then demonstrated how to defend against it. It brings him up into the leader pack of those players with 6 points out of 7.
Yeah, so far there are 4 players with the 6 points. And we have a new player there, Hanzo Hasashi. So maybe we can be focused on his game next. And let me check quickly if we have something still going on. And we have one game that's Schuld against Borning.
And White is doing very well in this endgame. White's king so aggressive, stepping over to the right side of the board to eliminate those black pawns. Ooh, and a desperate attempt here from Black, trying to create pawns on both sides of the board to push forward. It's actually brilliant defensive play from Black, who's right now going to be able to eliminate that last white pawn. The queen will check the king. The queen will capture the last pawn. A queen and bishop cannot defeat a queen on their own. Bortnik saves the game in what looked to be a hopeless situation. What a play from the Ukrainian.
Wow, yeah. There was
actually now he's playing with the US flag. So American, I guess now. And he wins on time. He wins on time.
No.
White trying to figure out how to win with a bishop and a queen. He cannot figure it out because it's not possible to win. And in searching for the win, he actually ends up losing the game. What a defensive effort for Bortnik. And he gets rewarded not only with a draw, he gets the full points. And that actually was a really important result because that catapulted Bortnik up into that leading pack with 6 points out of 7. What a crucial game. And if he ends up winning the tournament, he's going to remember what happened here.
This can be the key game for Bortnik. For now, we have 5 players: Sviridov, Bortnik, Hikaru, Hansa, and Exotic Princess with very good points, 6 out of 7. I think we do have now a break. Players also have a break. They have a little bit of time to get fresh air, get some drink, get more energy for the final rounds.
we're back with the week 4 of the Speed Chess Grand Prix series. We're fighting for a big prize fund. We're also going to see one player make it into the Speed Chess Championship main event. Right now, we have 5 players in the lead with 6 points out of 7. And we're going to see some exciting matchups as they start playing against each other in these coming rounds. There's 3 more rounds in the tournament.
Yeah, that's right. Do you have any preferences? Which game, which players' game should be focused right now in this round?
Well, right now, I feel like Hikaru and the comeback story is the main event, because Hikaru, he actually got a bit of a rocky start. He made a draw in the first round, and he started out, therefore, a bit behind the rest of these top players. But after that, he's made a great recovery. And here we see him taking on the black side of a Queen's Gambit, a very classical opening. But right now, I would say that I prefer White's position, because the pawn on d5, it's what is known as an isolated pawn. It's difficult to defend because you don't have any pawns to defend it. You have to use your pieces. And Hikaru here with the queen and the rook working as defensive pieces for the pawn. But the queen and the rook is typically pieces we want to be using for attacking purposes. We'll see how he gets on with that strategic element.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a bit surprised that White here pushes before. It's Hikaru. You are not castle the king yet, and when you push the pawn on the side, that might damage here White's position, and we might see something like a5 just to try to break through here on the queen side, but instead here Hikaru goes with d4, and now if White captures this pawn with a pawn, then Black can activate the piece. And even though the queens are off the board, the king is still in the center. It might be problematic. How about your f6 move and then d3? Do you think this can work?
That looks very tempting now that you mention it. And it was too tempting for Hikaru to refuse. He goes after White's knight. If the knight moves, the bishop may get into trouble. And the strategic element I talked about earlier, this pawn in the center having a problem being defended, that has been dealt with by Hikaru. Because his pawn is now ready to exchange with White's pawn. So the strategic disadvantage is no longer a problem. In fact, it's a problem now for White, who is the one with the pawn standing alone in the middle.
Yeah, that's right. And Black's rooks are also already on both open files. And knight might get to e4 to block the isolated pawn here on e3. Seems like Black is having really comfortable position right now. He plays rook d7 just to avoid any entrance of the rook on the 7th rank, and then we might see some king f7 and even queenside pawn push here on this board.
So White knows he's in a rush. He needs to get his king into the game. However, it's not so easy to make happen. If White's king were to move towards the middle right now, the Black knight would move forward, getting a fork on the king and on the rook. And right now, time is becoming an issue as well. White down to just 40 seconds on the clock. And you know what happens when you're low on time. We've seen it repeatedly today. Mistakes do happen, even with top players.
Yeah, that's right. White managed to trade the rooks, but now White is going to lose one of the pawns. And he decided to lose a3 pawn. Is this a good decision to keep the pawn, the passer, on the board?
I guess we're about to find out. It wouldn't be my choice. But on the other hand, just the fact that you had to give up a pawn to begin with, that was not good news for a black's position. White trying to make the argument that with the active king in the middle of the board, you could be able to salvage a draw. But Hikaru, he says, I'm going to get my king into the middle as well. And even though Hikaru now is about to lose a pawn on the left-hand side, he's also about to get his king up in the middle. And this king has now surrounded the white pawn in the center, meaning that Hikaru is still going to be up a pawn. Just he managed to get his king into a great position in the meantime. And Hikaru just needs some accuracy right now. I think moving the knight into the middle would be my choice for Hikaru. And that's also what he does.
And look at this, once again, huge time advantage on the clock, more than 1 minute. And position looks like he's finding these resources, that it's not so visible, and you can see after some moves. And in this pawn game, this I think should not be a problem to convert for
not
black.
A problem at all. Hikaru has gotten an endgame with an extra pawn. I think it should be fairly easy to win, but
maybe just to get this king.
Yeah, the fact that Hikaru is thinking tells me that this was not as easy as he was expecting. He's moving his king over to the left-hand side. The problem is when you do that, you're going to allow the white king to come in attacking the black pawns as well. So even though you're up a pawn, this is a race that needs to be accurately calculated. And Hikaru, with the calculations, he makes sure that he doesn't push his pawn too early. He uses his king to block white's king from getting into a defensive position. And after having shielded white's king away, then he pushes the pawn on the side of the board. It's some good calculation there from Hikaru to win the endgame. But notice how Hikaru was up more than a minute on the clock. That extra minute is what enabled him to spend that time he needed to make these calculations and find the way to bring the points home. And that actually has put him in first place as we look at the standings.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was thinking this G6 is pure calculation here. He just did this beautiful calculation. I was thinking about king here, c5, just to capture this and then to push g5. This kind of situation here. Also, this needs a calculation. And I believe this is still winning, as if king gets on h7, black is just on time to promote the pawn to the queen with a check. And this should be also winning. But wow, g6 move here was really unexpected one. All right, we do have one game in progress, and this is Pablo Zansky against Sheldon.
And Shield just gives up his knight, and we're gonna have a classic situation in chess. It's the infamous rook and bishop versus rook endgame, and both players with just 10 seconds on the clock, they do get an additional second per move made. But this is notoriously difficult for black to defend with such problems on the clock. In theory, it's supposed to be a draw, but with time running low, it's very difficult to make happen.
Yeah, that's right. One thing that we have to mention: this game will not change the fact that Hikaru is the sole leader right now, 7 points out of 8. And the other players, there are plenty of players, about 5 players with half a point less than him. Now, the most important is to qualify to the knockout system. 8 players will go to the knockout system.
And here, the evaluation bar on the left-hand side, it just pops up with the white. It means that there was a way for white to win the game in that
Here we have
instance.
again.
And once again, that is the case, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So you can see the evaluation bar changing up and down, up and down. The black king is kind of trapped in the corner, but the white rook is also in a position to kind of make sure that the, oh, and you lose on time. Wow, yeah, time is just tricky. Finding the right defensive moves here is difficult enough, in addition to being so low on time. And shield goes down in the infamous rook and bishop versus rook endgame. It's a win for white.
Yeah, that's it. The game has been ended, and a new round just started. Round 9 is in progress. Which game would you recommend us to get into and observe?
Well, of the top players, Kuliak is the only one we haven't observed so far. So I would probably go with that game.
Dan can be Onishchuk, who's one of the leaders, and he is facing Kuli from Russia. And yeah, we have. He's also one of the leaders. They're sharing the points, and the place is 6.5. Only Hikaru is having 7 points, and other 5 players, they're also fighting for top 8 places.
And black has given away one of their bishops early on here. White playing with the bishop pair, but on the other hand, black has more pawns in the middle of the board, controlling the center. White tries to compensate for that, though, getting their pawns involved as well. I would definitely prefer white's position, but I'm a sucker for the bishops working together. I love me some bishop pairs. And to me, that seems like the most strategically significant aspect of this game.
Yep. Bishop comes on f3 right now. Bishop is on f3. I think white can capture this and then to play bishop b2 just to bring this bishop on this diagonal. Or would you prefer to have the bishop on this diagonal and play bishop a3 here?
I would like to get the bishop out. White is postponing development and instead moving the knight forward. But the knight was headed for the square b5, where it wanted to attack black's queen. Black made sure that couldn't happen, moved the pawn forward, took control of the b5 square, prevented white's knight from getting up, and then Onishchuk, with the white pieces, chose to get their bishop out on the left-hand side. And both these white bishops are actually very good with their diagonals pointing down the board in good fashion.
Yeah. Well, queen c8, black is going a bit of passive. Now knight is hanging, and white's play looks quite easy. White can play rook d1, next move knight d5, control this square, and keep the position still better for himself.
Yeah, I agree. It's looking good for white. It's time for some desperate attempts from black. I thought black should push their pawn forward in the center there, but a good move also from Cooley here, where he moves his bishop up towards white's bishop, trying to make a trade. And having already admitted to being a huge fan of the bishop pair, I definitely think the trade of bishops black is setting up right now will ease his defensive task.
Yeah. White agreed on bishop trade because now knight f6 is not possibility, or knight.
Or is it? I'm gonna say knight f6 is the move to go for here.
Really?
Cooley,
What do you see here after rook e5?
Yeah, well, you're going to lose a pawn in the middle. I will admit to that. But at least black gets some attacking possibilities with the queen joining the fray
Oh, that's
up
nice.
on the right hand side. I'm not sure it works. And it seems like Cooley is taking a lot of time with this decision. In the end, he decides to sacrifice the pawn.
Oh,
Unischuk,
he did not take it.
he doesn't take the pawn in the middle, but actually what he did was trying to take the pawn on b7 instead. A very clever way of playing there from Unischuk. He's now about to capture a black pawn. The problem being that then black will be able to go queen d2 with an attack themselves on the white rook and on the white pawns. It's a tricky position. We've already noticed in this tournament that being up a pawn is no guarantee you're going to win the game. And right now, even though white is up a pawn, black is about to capture the one on the side of the board. It's equal material. The white pieces lately have been forced back. I would say it's anyone's game, if not for the fact that black is down to just 20 seconds against white's full minute.
Yep. Maybe white has to play bishop a3 and try to push this pawn as fast as possible in the center. So far, black cannot really stop this pawn, and it might be a good time. But instead, white first captures a6 pawn, black captures b3, and now can be played c5. With
very strange decision there from white, choosing not to push the pawn forward. The trade of rooks feel favorable for black, if you ask me. But that pawn on the left-hand side, that pawn is just going to be really difficult to deal with in the long run. And I think Unischuk's play here is maybe brilliant because he's just taking his time. There's no rush. That pawn on the left-hand side is going to be a thorn in black's side throughout. And black tries their only chance, the knight moving forward, trying to capture white's bishop, capturing this bishop and opening up around white's king. That is black's only hope right now. Unischuk taking advantage of the fact that he's way up on time. He's using this critical moment, using his time to find the best plan. I'm not sure what the best plan is. I would probably move my bishop away. Yes, like Keddy
That's what I was thinking, but then black still has a 3 pawn, and black opens up the second rank. But instead, white goes with a check. And is he going to? Oh, we have it. We have bishop a7.
Ooh, knight e7. Great move from Cooley. He actually wins the pawn without giving anything in return. Unfortunately, he then goes for the queen trade, which I do not think that was black's best plan. I think white now is in a position to get the rest of the pawns traded off. However, we have seen how tricky the knights can be. Black is up a pawn and has a knight jumping around, causing all sorts of trouble. I think white should be able to make a draw. But with the time situation being what it is,
was winning
anything
there.
could happen.
Oh, wow. We can see that move. We can see that was a brilliant
and
move.
It's a repetition in the end. And we're going to see a little replay of a moment where black had a decisive move. The move pushing the pawn forward in the middle would have been brilliant. Because if the pawn is captured, the knight comes in, attacks both the king and the bishop. However, if the bishop just moves immediately, the pawn continues forward, and it's impossible to stop this pawn from becoming a new queen. Because if the bishop goes back, trying to defend, the knight once again comes with that pesky fork. And it just goes to show how dangerous those knights can be, especially when you are very low on time.
Yeah, knights are a true danger in the blitz games when they're like seconds ticking on the clock. And this is another example how knights simply could dominate the bishop, but the game ended in a draw. We had a repetition, and there was this kind of move. Also, quite hard to spot it during the game when you have seconds on the clock. For us, it's easier because we see the bar was, going up really fast for black, and we just got an idea what was going on. But for players, they don't see the bar, so it can be a really good result here for both players. They keep leading the tournament, and the
and
game has
we have some big developments because
wow.
Hikaru Nakamura on the standings, he's there with 7 points out of 9. That means Hikaru lost his game and has given up his top placement in the tournament. Bortnik on 8 out of 10. That kind of suggests that the 10th round has started and that Bortnik already made a draw to secure himself a top placement.
Wow, that was really fast. That was really fast game.
So the question now is whether Tigra can win this tournament. Considering Bortnik made an early draw, Tigra with a win now can win this entire tournament and the big cash prize that follows with it. And he's aware of that because he's going very aggressive with the pawns on the left-hand side, pushing them forward, going up against White's queen, really trying to go for the win here.
Yep. We have a question: who did Hikaru lose in the 8th round? I believe that was Bortnik, as Bortnik got the leader's position together with Tigra. And with Tigra, Hikaru has already played and he won that game. So I think that was Alexander Bortnik who won the game against Hikaru in the 9th round.
And now Tigra, I wouldn't say that it's normal play from black. The knight coming out to the edge of the board, the rook pointing in the queen's direction. It's definitely a very unorthodox position. And we've seen Hanso play previously. We saw Hanso play against Hikaru earlier, and that game was pretty much decided by Hanso's slow play, who got down a minute on the clock and faced the punishment for that. And as such, having an unorthodox position here can definitely be in black's favor, playing against an opponent who's comparably slow on decisions.
Yeah, that's right. We do have a new person joining the leaders, and this is Raunak Satvani from India. We haven't seen his games so far, and he is having 7.5 out of 10 games. I think that's the player Bortnik made a draw in the last round.
Yeah. And in our main game, the black bishop together with the queen pointing in against the white knight in the middle. But white chooses not to protect the knight. Black captures. Black now up a pawn. And we have a very interesting situation where white has 2 bishops while black has 2 knights. It's a competition of the knights versus the bishops. Which
one is your favorite? Which side is your favorite? Your beloved 2 bishops or 2 knights with extra pawn?
That's the thing. I adore the bishop pair, but I also am a big fan of being up a pawn. You're putting my 2 loves up against each other. And right here, I'm going to have to go with the pawn. I like being up a pawn. And I think Tigra can win this tournament with that extra pawn.
Yep, $2,500. That's the price he can win if he managed to convert this extra pawn on the board, but now he's giving up this pawn, is he?
No, he's going for a queen trade, which I think looks good. The problem now being that White's bishop is pointing in towards the pawn on e6, and he felt he had to give up that pawn. I don't really understand why he did that. He did have possibilities to defend that pawn, and now the bishops are just raining this board. The bishops already recaptured the one pawn Black was up. Pawn number 2 is about to follow. Because there's no way for Black to defend the pawn on c6. It looks as though Tigra will not be the winner of this tournament. His position is about to just get ruined.
Yeah, that's right. And now we will see a good demonstration of the strength of pair of bishop. They are staying together now on c-file. Soon White will also push the pawns, central pawns. There is weakness that Black has to guard, and White can also just connect the rooks at open files and just push the pawns forward, open up the diagonals, open up the files. That's going to be simply the best for White.
Yeah, devastating for Tigra, who's had such a good tournament. But those bishops, I was wrong to bet against them.
Well, we have knights. We have 2 knights on the board. Oh no, Black is just losing now. Exchange after rook c8 and bishop b7. I just wanted to say that knights are so tricky in the end game so far, what we have seen. But this is getting worse and worse for Black.
The rook is trapped. The bishop controlling all the squares the rook would like to use. And to add insult to injury, I don't even think White is going to capture the rook. I think White is going to bring in another one, putting pressure with both rooks down the files. I think Tigra just has to resign here. But no one has ever won a game by resigning. So we keep on playing. However, this last move was very good from Hanso, forcing the trade of bishop versus knight, eliminating those 2 Black knights in the middle who were working very well together. And now White's rook can just capture the pawn on the side, or the king can come in for the checkmate. Also a good idea. The Black king is unable to escape. F5, that's a good clean way of winning the game. Sacrifice your rook, have those pawns in the center.
This is so hard to watch, this game. Like, look at this. White is giving no chance.
Stalemate.
Yeah, if king d4 there was a stalemate. Now rook has to be activated. Rook e6 is not stalemate anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were some stalemating ideas. If Black could just send their rook off the board, it would have been stalemate. That the king could, Black had no legal moves other than the rook, and the king was not in check. So without the rook, this would have been a draw. But with the rook still on the board, White had the situation under control. Hanso wins the game to join the leaders on 8 points out of 10. Sviridov also wins, but Hikaru is still playing, and Hikaru can still make 8 points out of 10, and he's gonna do it. Hikaru is winning his last game. He's gonna get to 8 points. The question is, how is his tie breaks? The ranking of the players is not accidental at all. It's based on kind of what's known from soccer as goal difference. And you try to say how good your opponents have done in comparison with how the other players' opponents have done. And basically, the better your opponents do, the higher you place on the standings, because you are judged to have the most difficult route to these 8 points. And as it turns out, Hikaru joins the pack at number 2. Bortnik with his safe draw in the last round. He is steady at number one. These standings could still change depending on other results. But I think it's pretty safe to say that these are our top four players.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Top four players got assured first, second, third, and fourth places with 8 points. And we do also have players who qualified to knockout system. They are 8 players. And I think we already know who are those 8 players as well.
Yeah, and actually at that very last moment, the very last game to finish actually moved Hikaru up to the first place. So what probably happened is that a player that Hikaru had played previously in the tournament won their game, so that Hikaru's opponents got a higher score than Bortnik's opponents at the very last moment. And that is as clutch of a tournament victory as you can get it for Nakamura. He got off to a rough start, but he comes through in the end and wins this tournament.
That cost Bortnik a lot of $100. The last game of the opponents or Hikaru's match. This is amazing, but still we have a lot of things going on. We are going to see knockout system. 8 players will face each other, and we will see the winner of knockout system as well. But before that, we are going to take a short break, and also players will take a short break, and we'll come back with the knockout system.
watch as 12 of the strongest men and women's chess players in the United States battle for the title of the best player in the country. Catch Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So, Daniel Naroditsky, Irina Krush, Carissa Yip, and many more. Tune in to watch the U.S. Chess Championship starting on October 6th, and don't miss a single move of this exciting tournament.
Welcome back at Speeches Grand Prix knockout stage. We have 8 players, but we're going to have only one winner in the end of a day. And here we have the players who managed to get into this stage. And here we're going to have 2 games. The players going to have different colors in both games. The time control is the same for now. And in the quarterfinals, all these players will face each other right now. We can see on the board, Alexander Bortnik will face Denis Lasnik. Boris Savchenko will face Bahadur Jobava. Oh, we already have the names, their real names. No more nicknames on the screen. But actually, we can take a look as well the bracket, how they who they are facing and who will be facing then. So Boris Savchenko will be playing against Bahadur Jobava. And then on the other side, we have Naderbek against Pavel Portnakov and Sviridov against Raunak Shadvani. So here we have the brackets, and soon we're going to know the winner of the event.
And a very important question on Twitch from Guns Blazing. Where is Hikaru? Well, the thing is that Hikaru is already qualified for the Speed Chess Championship. And this tournament primarily being a qualifier for that championship. Hikaru is not eligible to play in the knockout stage. And we're going to take a look now at the standings. This tournament is a part of a 4-week event to see who can gather most points overall and get that coveted spot into the Speed Chess Championship main event. And it actually turns out Jeffrey Zhang, with his second place, first place, and second place in the first 3 initial tournaments, he has already qualified to the Speed Chess Championship. And as a result of that, the prize these players are fighting for today is the $1,000 first place in the knockout. That is what the stakes are right now. So considering that the overall Grand Prix series has already been decided, it's winner takes all for now. It's the $1,000 prize to win this knockout stage.
That's right. All these players, all the 8 players already got some prizes and quite good numbers. Here we had the total prize fund is 10,000 USA dollar. And now they can get even more, and they can also get into the other stage. The games will start very soon. And well, which game should be focused? Which match should be focused here?
Well, actually, I'm gonna help you out. I know you have some Georgian tendencies, and Bahadur Jobava from Georgia is one of the most exciting players in chess. He's playing Boris Savchenko, who's also a man known for his creativity and known for being especially good in these low time controls. I think the match between the two of them is going to be really exciting to follow.
All right. Your call.
You're not going to protest.
Absolutely not. We already have the game on the board. And Boris Savchenko made the first move. That's e4. And Bahadur was a bit late. He lost almost 30 seconds for the first move, and he made e5. And here we have knights jumping on the boards, and they're playing so fast this opening.
It's a Petrov Russian game, and we see both players are actually preparing to do a queenside castling. But I spoke too soon. To me, it looked as though Jobava was going to put his king in the same direction as White's king. But as guaranteed, before we chose this matchup, we're going to have some excitement because the players have chosen to put their king on separate sides of the board. That is usually an invitation to incredible attacking play.
That's right. And look at this knight g5 move. This knight cannot be even kicked by the h6 pawn, because this h6 pawn might be a weakness for black later on. White might have some ideas either to sacrifice the bishop for it or to play f3, g4, and then to open up the g file. And here what white is doing, playing f3 with the idea of g4 next move. For now, the bishop is hanging on e3. White has to move this bishop or the guard the bishop with rook e1. But anyway,
but look at black's queen. Black's queen is pointing down towards the pawn on a2, in addition to pointing down on the bishop. We often talk about knight forks, but here the queen has attacks in two directions. And losing the bishop is horrible, but losing that guy on the side of the board, that's pretty dreadful as well. And Savchenko chooses to save his bishop, but that allows black's queen to infiltrate on the side of the board. It's already a big trouble brewing for Savchenko.
That's right. That's right. Queen e6 was a brilliant move that was missed by Boris Savchenko, as well as from me. I really loved White's position and the potential attack on the king side. But hey, look at this. White just found this brilliant idea. I think from the moment when he captured the knight on g5, he spotted that queen e6 with queen a2 move. And do you think White can somehow survive in here?
Yeah, I think this is still a tricky position. The white bishop comes up, attacks black's queen. Black's queen gets out of danger, but the white bishop is still pointing in towards the black king, and a sacrifice is attempted by Savchenko to
oh my God, what's happening? Look,
counter sacrifice by Jobava. A brilliant move by Jobava. He gives up his rook to get his queen back into defense, and Savchenko just resigns. And they start the next game. That was a brilliant rook sacrifice from Jobava, because he was going to get his queen to give a check next move and get his queen back into defense, capturing White's rook on the way. And we can't really do a replay of that situation because the next game already started. It's a two-game matchup. But Jobava, having won with the black pieces, now he only needs to survive for a draw with white to make it through to the semifinals.
That's right. The last game, what we have witnessed Rook Ace2 was just the highest level of madness in chess. And Boris Savchenko just gave up that game, and he will try to fight back here. But Joby is just in embarrassed situation right now. As I know, he's not a person who can feel comfortable to play for a draw. He will still show his best here, and he's not going to play some passive game. He's just going to play another game.
Yeah. So the backside of being the disadvantage and now he's going to sacrifice. Jobava is going to sacrifice. No, he's not.
Here, you think knight g7?
I thought maybe bishop up to h6. I thought there were some sacrifices possible, but I have now seen that my calculations were wrong.
King b1 was played. That was actually his idea, to play bishop h6 next move, as the king just step from this diagonal and from this pin. Wow, then this is the position where black offers a queen trade. Should not be so bad for white.
No, big advantage for Jabava here is that he knows he will make it through with a draw, and Savchenko, wanting to avoid that draw, he's trying to kind of hold on to his pieces, but it's not so easy to make happen. And with this move, the bishop out on the edge, the bishop attacks the rook, and the rook cannot really move without creating a lot of other trouble. And it would seem for the second game in a row, Jabava is just dominating Savchenko. What a performance by Jabava. I was not expecting this. He gets a bishop. He gets to capture a rook with his bishop. In the remaining position, black is up, down a rook in exchange for a knight. And I don't think he's going to come back from that, especially considering that black actually needs to win this to make it into the semifinal.
Yep, I don't believe this, that black can come back here. Look at this f5, h4, h5. The next can be also bishop comes on c4 to control this diagonal. There can be rook g1, rook g6 ideas. This is too much to handle. For instance, now queen g5 could attack the bishop and the pawn at the same time, but Joby here goes with rook g1, and maybe his next move is f4, f5, or first to guard b2 weakness and then to push either f or h4 pawn.
And I think the enterprising value of these players were really seen in this matchup, because in both games, we ended up with a situation where the kings landed on opposite sides of the board and enabled Jabava, who really got to showcase his attacking prowess. He really showed up in these attacking positions and destroyed Savchenko. There's no other way to put it. This was a one-man show, and Savchenko was just never left with no chance.
That's right. Now bishop is hanging. Bishop has to retreat back, and rook g1 can create a serious threat here on g6. There is also a move like f4. It comes with all the tempest here. Bishop is hanging. Now f5 creates another threat. Oh, actually, rook g6 is another threat, but he goes with queen c2. There are so many resources here for white. And yeah, it's a full domination for white.
And now b4 is going to attack the knight. The knight doesn't really have anywhere good to go. He tries to retreat it, but then it gets captured by white's bishop. Jabava, knowing full well he only needs a draw here, it's probably more difficult getting a draw than getting a win. I think he's about to push his rook into the heart of black's position. I think he's going to go rook d7. He chooses instead to use his queen out on the side. Also a good move. Part of the reason black doesn't stand a chance. Oh, it's a fork. The queen once again with a double attack, attacking the rook and attacking the bishop at the same time. In a second consecutive game, Jabava decides it, using his queen attacking in two directions. There is some poetic harmony in that.
Joey knows how to use a queen properly for double attacks. And here we have two rooks versus a bishop. White's king is still exposed. And now black will try to give some checks, but white has too much of a material, and white can cover the king perfectly well. And white can also start to pick up the pawns on the queen side.
And even if he messed up somehow, he only needs a draw to secure himself the semifinal placement. He's up a rook, two rooks in exchange for a bishop. and that's going to be more than sufficient to take this home.
Yep, battery is down to 16 seconds. He has to rush a little bit, but the position is just too good. And yeah, that's hard to believe that Savchenko can survive here. Savchenko really needs a miracle.
He just resigns.
Yeah.
He just resigns. Jabava moves on to the semifinal, and we're going to find another match to look at. I think my choice would be Bortnik, who was up until the very last second in first place of the.
This match ended in a draw. This is, I think, the first match. The other games are still going on. We can take a look at the next games. Here we have Ronak Sadvani against Valery Sviridov. Seems like Black is having a winning position because Black has an extra piece, right? And the queen is in a trouble, and a7 bishop now is just gone.
There's a lot of trickery still going on. Black up a knight, but the white queen pointing in against the knight and against the bishop doesn't seem like it's so easy to deal with. The Russian, he chooses to go on the attack with his rook, just completely ignoring the pieces under threat in the middle. He decides to make his own threat with the rook pointing in towards White's bishop and also pointing in the direction of White's king.
White is taking some time here, and he pushed the bishop on g4 to increase the pressure on the 7 knights. And now this is a weakness. Maybe Black can try to put up some pressure, and he goes with queen f6. Right now, queen f2, queen g2 is a real threat.
Brilliant move.
That.
Brilliant move. The queen threatens checkmate, but also protects the Black bishop. That means that when White now defends against the checkmate, the knight will be able to move away. That was the move that put Sviridov into the semifinal of this event. And that means Raunak Sadvani, who actually made it to the final of the Junior Speed Chess Championship, where he's playing against his countryman, Mihal Sarin, he's actually knocked out here by Valery Sviridov. Well done by the Russian.
Yeah. We can move to the other game. This is still in progress, and we have a lot of pieces on the board. So who stands here better? Look at these knights both in the center.
Yeah, a very tricky position. It's just very blocked right now, but could go either way. Yeah. I'm gonna say draw is the most likely, and so says Nordibek with the black pieces, because he's just moving his queen back and forth, literally doing nothing, just waiting, and saying that I have a solid position. You cannot infiltrate against me.
Yeah, that's right. Now he's going for 95, and c4 pawn is under attack. White has to give up the dark square bishop for the knight if White wants to save this pawn, or there should be something else that White has to find out. He's just giving up the c4 pawn.
Yeah, that is not a good sign. That pawn was important, if you ask me. And Nordibek, he actually elects not to capture the pawn because he is leading the match. What an interesting decision by the young Uzbeki player. He's saying, yes, I could have captured your pawn, but that would open up the position to some dangerous possibilities. So he elects not to capture, and he's going to live to regret that decision, because White's queen is about to enter through the middle of the board, and Black's position collapses at the buzzer. Wow, it turns out Nordibek, he thought he had an impenetrable safe haven for his king, but a knight sacrifice from Pavel Pankratov has opened up. It has given White's queen access to the Black king, and it's provided a checkmating attack, which means we are going to see a replay, a tiebreak in this matchup.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing a 1-minute game to decide who gets into the semifinal. And if it's a draw, they're going to play another 1-minute game.
It's up to the first win, right? That was such a tragic game, actually. We're going to see the tiebreak, but the time will be less on the clock. You earlier asked about Borning's game, and I just did not saw that it was actually second game still in progress. So here we have the game of Borning and Denis Lazovic. The first game ended in a draw. This is the second game, and here Borning has an extra pawn. Not anymore.
Not anymore, but he does have those pawns on the left-hand side of the board, which are going to be pushed forward in an attempt to get a new queen. However, considering the time situation, this could still go either way. Bortnik making a big success here, getting his king up the board to actually help out his own pawn. And there he got the trade of queens. The Black queen gave a check, forced a trade, and after the trade, the Black pawn on the side of the board just had a straight way forward to becoming a new queen, and Bortnik has decided the game in his favor. He's made it to the semifinal.
That's right. It's Bortnik, it's Joby. Who else? We have also Sviridov, Valery, and we do have one playoff, one tiebreak. Which will start probably very soon, right? This is Pankratov against Nadirbek.
And they're going to be playing a 1-minute game. No increments. And if they cannot figure out who the best player is in that game, if it ends in a draw, we will see another 1-minute game, and we will keep doing that until one person wins.
Yeah. What do you think? Which is more exciting, to have a first win matches or to have
we can't have difficult questions now, because this is going to be fast.
I will say it's in 1 minute because the time is limited. Yeah, okay, I'll ask the question later on. Let's focus on this game.
Okay, so it's a Benoni from Pankratov. He's given up his bishop for a white knight early on, white with the bishop pair. But on the other hand, the Black bishop has a nice diagonal pointing down towards the middle. And especially in a 1-minute game, that bishop can be very tricky to deal with for white.
That's right. Look at this knight h5. Black here sometimes pushes f5 just to complicate things in the center. There is also knight e5 with the idea of c4, but now Black chooses
queen g5 now. Oh no, queen g5 is a big blunder because of queen takes d4. Queen takes d4 on the board from Nordibek. He gets the queens traded off. Actually not down a piece for Black, but Black ends up down a pawn. In addition, White has the extra, the advantage of the bishop pair. And look at how the bishops work. The bishop infiltrates to attack the pawn on d6. The pawn cannot be defended. And now White is up 2 pawns.
Yeah, that's it. Bishop versus knight. In this case, bishop is superior than the knight. Knight is very passive, being stuck on d7. And what White is doing, White is getting the second rook on the 7th rank. There are going to be a lot of pickups on this rank, and this should be that should be a game over for Black.
The White rooks feasting on the Black pawns on the right-hand side. Now an exchange of rooks, then pushing the pawn in the middle. There's no stopping that pawn. I believe the pawn is going to go in, become a new queen. And Norderbeck, the young Uzbeki player with some brilliant tactics there in the middle, he goes through to the semifinal.
That's it. We know fourth player who will get into the semifinals, and soon we will see the pairings there who will face each other. Wow,
yeah, so
that was nice. Nice match.
Yeah, it's always exciting when they get decided in the 1 minute section. We're going to be taking a look at the. We're going to be taking a commercial break, and then we're back with the semifinals soon. Welcome back to this Speed Chess Grand Prix, the fourth tournament, and we are in the knockout stages. And we are looking at the semifinalists. Alexander Bortnik versus Badr Jabava is our first matchup. The semifinals will not happen simultaneously. So we will first be following this match between Bortnik and Jabava, and then we will move on to the Sviridov versus Yakuboe Nordirbek's matchup.
Yeah, that's right. Here we have Bortnik and Jabava first game, Bortnik with white pieces. I'm sure these two players have played hundreds of games, as the players usually like to challenge each other aside of the chess tournaments, online chess tournaments. So what do you think? Who is in the better shape today?
It's a good question. We saw Jabava winning his quarterfinal with a 2-0 score. Just a devastating show of force from him. And now we see Jabava actually adopting a pretty passive position. None of his pieces beyond the third rank until he pushed his pawn forward on the side of the board. White is well placed in the middle with their pawns, but is it enough to win the game? We're about to find out.
Yeah, what we have seen, the way how Jabava plays is just he allows the opponent to get some advantage, get some active play, and he's a bit passive. And then at some point, he's starting to play. Like he gives so much opportunity to the opponent, and he still feels okay in that positions.
Yeah, and now the black queen entering the side of the board, making room for a rook to come into the middle. That's precisely what he has done, putting pressure in towards the white pawn in the middle.
Yeah, d4 pawn now is hanging. Although white might have the bishop e3, some resource there, but I think it's not worth it to risk that and just to guard d4 pawn, and he went with rook d1.
Here we have the live footage of the players as well. Bortnik on the left-hand side, very well dressed, may I say, today, and that's Jabava right on the right-hand side.
Yeah. Shout out to the presence of Bortnik. That's very professional and classy look. And yeah, we have also Jovi on the other hand. He's Black streaming, Queen. Is not he? I think he's streaming. He's talking. Wow.
The Black Queen moves out on the left-hand side of the board, and Bortnik uses this opportunity to make a sacrifice on the opposite side where the Black King resides. Black's Queen completely out of play, and that has allowed Bortnik to give away a bishop, now sacrificing a knight, really getting in against those pawns that were supposed to protect the Black King. Jabava feels forced to move his rook forward instead of capturing that white knight. And Bortnik now is able. Oh, wow. He sacrifices again. Bortnik has already given up a bishop for a pawn. Now he gives up a rook for a bishop. In this position, it's a rook and 2 pawn in exchange for 2 pawns. However, the white queen, as Ketty illustrates, is about to infiltrate on that king side. Yeah, that is some serious trouble coming the Georgians' way.
Yeah, that is amazing play by Bortnik. He sacrificed first a rook, then a knight, then again rook. And I think this is not the end. Look at the time. Joby is struggling on the clock. And I really don't want to heard what he's talking right now at the stream. Probably he's really upset with everything what's happening right now. He's still trying to find some moves. For instance, now after Queen G6, he might consider to cover the king by the rook, but this is a really tough position for Black, right?
Yeah, a knight and 2 pawns is what white has collected in exchange for a rook. The attack on Black's king is still ongoing, but for Jabava, it has to be a relief that he's finally about to get his queen back into the game. That Black queen hiding out on the left-hand side of the board, that was the source of all his problems. The queen was not contributing in defense, and Bortnik now trying to exploit that by actually making an exchange between the rooks. He's trying to eliminate the one Black piece that's doing a good job defending the Black king. And when that piece is exchanged off, the Black king is left pretty defenseless.
There is also Queen F7 to capture this rook. White can choose which rook to capture, this or this one, which one looks most.
I think I would capture the rook on G3.
Oh, me too, to have these pawns in here and then to hide the king, and there will be really a careless position for white.
Or maybe I would give the check and then take the rook, actually.
Okay,
but yeah, it's a tricky decision, and Bortnik is taking his time with it. He's down to just 20 seconds. He decides in the end to capture, but Black manages to get the queen back into defense. It's a situation that should be very good for white, but with Jabava, you can never feel safe.
That's true. That's true. He's trying his best, his last sources here, but yeah, white picked up so many pawns already. There is a check. B7 pawn is falling as well, and I think we might have a result very soon.
It's incredible how Bortnik is able to capture one Black piece after another, and with the white knight getting into a dangerous position, this should be game over. But he's down to just 3 seconds. He gets 1 second per move that's made. He goes into an endgame where it's 5 pawns and a knight against the rook, but it's too many pawns. The pawn's just rushing up the board. It's impossible for the rook to stop on its own. Bortnik doesn't even care about his knight. He's giving away his knight so that his pawns may become queens, and that gives him the win in the game. And there's no break. Next game, boom, starts immediately.
Yeah, they have no time to get over the first game, and in case for Jabava, this is even harder because he's probably still thinking about the previous crazy game. But yeah, it's not time. It's not enough time, and he has to focus on this game right now. What do you think about this pawn structure that Jabava just did? Gave up the dark square bishop, and then he pushed b3 forward.
Well, you know me, I'm a big fan of those bishops. I think Bortnik's position is pretty good, but it's an unorthodox position. These top players, they often have they have seen similar situations, and so they can lean into their previous knowledge. And what Jabava is so good at is creating unusual situations so that the other grandmasters cannot rely on their intuition, that they have to think because it's a completely new situation they have never seen before.
Yeah, he has this sort of unique style where he feels really, really confident, although it can be really questionable the way he chooses to play the game. Sometimes it works, but sometimes, like in the previous game, Bortnik just took advantage of the passive setup of Badur Jabava.
He's definitely a risk taker, but I must admit, I have personal experience playing against Jabava, and I have some bad memories from it. So I have learned to respect his ways. And right now, there's an offer of a bishop trade from Jabava. He wants to eliminate Black's bishop pair because once those are traded off, White is going to sit pretty with some nice pawns in the middle. However, Bortnik has played a tricky move himself, opening up for an attack from his bishop to the knight on the edge. That capture has happened. Jabava has eliminated Black's bishop pair, but on the other hand, it's not clear how he's gonna further increase pressure on Black's camp.
Yeah, that's. I think that was the reason why Bortnik pushed f5 to get the opposite color bishops on the clock on the board. At some point, if there's no weakness in Black's position, that can be also be a very easy draw in the end games. And he's the one who needs just a draw. He's not crazy for a win. He's not in must-win situation. It is Jabava who is in must-win situation. So I think for this reason, he just pushed f5 to get these bishops on the board.
And now he's pushing more pawns forward. The Black daring White to push forward in the middle. The disadvantage for White to move forward would be that the bishop then is blocked by his own pawn. And yes, it also opens up for Black's bishop. However, a third potential problem is the Black knight on the edge getting ready to capture. Oh, wow. Knight to a7. Bortnik did not see that move. The Black queen is in tremendous trouble on the side of the board. Jabava is dancing on his camera. He is enjoying himself right now. This semifinal seems to be going towards a tiebreak. A 1-minute bullet game might be needed to decide between these two semifinalists.
Yeah, that's it. After 97, we saw some moves of Jabava. So happy, smiling. Yeah, he's back. He's back in the game. He's back in the fight. And wow, that's something that me personally, I did not see coming. And for a second, we're gonna see also the video of Bortnik. He's so upset. He's not making a move. He's just talking. He's just talking to his chat. He's not even making a move. He's very upset.
Very frustrated with his own play. The queen on the edge, it just never got into the game. And right now, White's knight just infiltrated, really, along the edges of the board, and the knight succeeds in capturing a Black rook. Jabava with a rook in exchange for a bishop. In addition, Jabava has 2 pawns in the middle where Black has none. The Black queen is still stuck on the corner on the edge of the board. There's genuinely nothing good to say about Bortnik's position. It's completely hopeless. And now Jabava pushing his pawns forward as well. He's going to be in a position here to chase Black's bishop. Oh no, he chooses to sacrifice his rook. And Bortnik not choosing to accept that sacrifice because taking White's rook would have resulted in also losing his own bishop. So he tries to keep as many pieces on the board to keep the situation tense and complicated. And honestly, I feel like he succeeded in that. I do not like Jabava's decision there. Jabava is still up by 2 pawns, but there are not a lot of pawns protecting the White king. And during the course of this tournament today, we have seen way bigger comebacks than this one, should Bortnik succeed in making the draw.
I agree with that. It was unnecessary complications here from white side. White could simply play that position with two rooks against bishop and the rook with extra exchange and extra two pawns. But here we have this position and he has to keep it go still. He's trying now to sacrifice a7 pawn.
Checkmate.
Oh, nice. That's nice.
It seems like Jabava had it under control. We were doubting him for a little bit, but we were wrong to do so.
But we have to admit that it was Borny who gave this chance, king with king f8. But actually, I think Black was in just Zugzwang situation.
Yeah, Jabava had succeeded in creating, making his pawns move forward. And that means it's tied at 1-1. We go into a 1-minute game, no increments. If you're low on time here, is probably game over for you. Bortnik with the white pieces. He goes after Black's bishop, and he's allowed to capture the bishop. This looks very good for white, if you ask me.
Yep. And Joey here goes with Karakan defense. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's considered to be Georgian's favorite opening because all of us are we do love to play Karakan defense. I think that's okay for him. He used to play this kind of openings quite a lot, and I think he's going to long castle and then later to try to push e5 or c5. I think he will push c5 here.
But look at the rating difference. Bortnik sporting a 3,300 bullet rating, whereas Jabava only has 2,703. It means that Bortnik in these extremely quick time controls should be considered the major favorite.
Yeah, that's true.
But Bortnik is spending too much time. He has not adapted well to this bullet format. He doesn't know that there's no increment. Bortnik doesn't know there's no increment. He's about to lose this on time. Jabava, don't think, just move. Bortnik is playing so slow because he thinks he's getting 1 second extra per move. He doesn't realize how much trouble he's in. At some point now, I think he's gonna realize he's not getting that extra time as he was expecting. And Bortnik with a completely winning position. He has just 1 second left and he's going to lose it on time.
No.
Kids, make sure you check out the rules before you play the game. Bortnik cannot believe what he just witnessed. He didn't know that there's no increment in the bullet section.
There is no increment. I just read it on his face when he said there is no increment. He just said it. Unbelievable. Oh, what?
Gotta be checking those rules, kids. If not, you might end up like Bortnik here, losing a game you deserved to win.
Oh, that hearted me. That really hearted me. We do have second game, but still, I think all of us are in shock, and Bortnik should be in the worst situation right now. But it's such a good lesson to, it's a lesson. I lost one classical game on time because I thought it was an increment, but it was not an increment after 40 moves. So yeah, since then I'm starting to read the regulations, but this is so hard.
And there's just no breaks for wary commentators. We move right next with the second semifinal. It's Valery Sviridov with the black pieces facing Nordirbek Yakuboyev from Uzbekistan. And black has gone with the double fianchetto, both bishops pointing in towards the middle of the board. But in the middle of the board, we will find that white has just completely occupied it with their pawns. So it's the duel of the fianchettoed bishops against the big pawn center.
Wow. So okay, this is a tricky question. You like the bishops and you also like the pawns, pawn activities and the space. So which side would you prefer here? Bishops or the
definitely
pawns?
Like White's position. And I like the previous move Norderbeck played with the king going into the corner. The idea is that this square on G1 is actually for the bishop. The king had to move so that the bishop could use that square. I think White has a good position.
We might see another bishop coming here on G1 after knight G4, but knight E1, that avoids knight G4 coming forward. And this move, knight E1, actually also stops another knight to come on C2.
Yeah, but actually, it's a tricky situation now because the pawn moving forward on the right-hand side is attacking White's knight. And that knight is crucial because that knight is protecting White's pawn in the center. Well, the knight has to move to avoid being captured. And now the big question is, can Black exploit that by capturing the pawn in the middle? And the answer to that question was no, it cannot be exploited. And Black had to retreat their knight, and White remains in control of these far advanced pawns in the middle.
Yep. How White should react with this h3 pawn? Capture it?
I would probably capture it. But we definitely don't want to let it live because it can be like a really big problem in the long run. So that black pawn on the side has to go at some point. Yeah. But Sviridov now using his pawn to attack the furthest white pawn, trying to open up the diagonal for the bishop down towards the white king. It turns out I was wrong. This strategy of the bishops pointing in towards the middle has been brilliant by the Russian because he is now punishing the white pawns for being too aggressive. He's exchanging them off the board, and once they are removed, we will see how strong the black bishops can become. Incredible play here so far.
Yeah. And now we have e5. Black is trying to demolish the white's pawn structure on the king side in the center. And this is a lost. This is a lost because it takes f4 and then knight can jump somewhere and it's going to get really ugly. Knight e4, I think.
Ooh, tricky. The knight can capture in the middle, opens an attack from the rook against the rook, from the bishop against the bishop.
And here we have it.
That's a good move.
Here we have it. Wow.
Great prediction. The black bishop on g7 now pointing down on its counterpart on b2. The rooks also pointing against each other. In addition, the black rook considering moving up along its f file. There's so many captures going on right now. And I think, the bishop in the middle cannot be captured by white's knight because the black rook will then come down and give checkmate. So the bishop is now pointing in towards white's king. And we see Norderbeck very, very low on time, down to 18 seconds on the clock. I'm going to need to count because we've seen so many captures. I'm not really sure what happened there. Yeah. Black is up a pawn. After all of that, black is just up a pawn. That's what really fascinates me about these grandmasters when they play. They have tremendous complications, a lot of captures. And then you end up one guy having a pawn extra. But sometimes
you feel
that's
like
enough.
It should be a queen or rook or piece, and it's just one.
Yeah, something, right? I think actually queen takes g3 there. It could have been. No, I'm imagining things. I think
Maybe black can capture another pawn, then get the knight in the center. It's just so bad position for white. The pawn is still alive. I think that was better just to get rid of this pawn at some point at the beginning, or not to allow black to get so far. And this is the last try here with rook d5 sacrifice. Black accepted that, and black got the king on the g7. And now there are some checks. And this don't look good for white.
Black's king doesn't have a lot of protection around it, but neither does white's. And black has the advantage of having an extra pawn in addition to having a rook for knight. So it should be sufficient. And now black is able to exchange the queens, get rid of the queens on the same diagonal. White realizes there's no hope, resigns the game, and that means Sviridov is almost ready for the finals because he only needs a draw in this white game to make it through and play Jababa.
Yeah, that's right. And Valery have won already Swiss tournament earlier, and seems like he feels really confident in this tournament and in this format. But on the other hand, we have another big, very young and talented Uzbekistan player, and he can show his best right now. It's his last chance from his side.
And Norderbeck coming in with the knight in the middle of the board. Is this knight going to be really good, or is it going to be trapped? White is intending to push the pawn forward, chase the knight back next move. So if black is going to make something happen, it has to happen now. And that was a brilliant move by Norderbeck, because he's also putting, in addition to the bishop putting pressure against e2, he's also getting ready for queen g4, which will attack white's bishop and put additional pressure on this e2 pawn. That may have been the move he needed. This match is not over. The black queen is about to enter the fray, and with quite devastating consequences.
That's right. I don't mind. Personally, I don't mind to see yet another bullet tiebreak in this match, because it's going to be more chess and more excitement as well. And Norderbeck is in a good track right now. He might win this game. Look at this. He captured the e2 pawn, and seems like yeah, it's just not really good position for white.
A potential big comeback here for the Uzbeki player. He's doing all the right things with the black pieces so far. He's also up on time. And Sviridov on the camera seems frustrated with how this game has gone.
That's right.
I think he's going to have to take out the knight while he has the opportunity to do so. He also captured a black pawn. That means he's no longer down a pawn, but black has a really good bishop pair pointing down the board right now.
That's right. And also, black can access to the second rank with the rook, but first he opens up the bishop, which you just mentioned. All right, there is something going on here. Queen d4. Yeah, not too far.
The queen is attacked, but she just moves away. Both black's queen and black's bishop now targeting white's pawn on b2.
That's right. And white is not even considering to guard that pawn, and white is giving up that pawn, hoping for some counterplay. But if I were black, I would just capture that. But Norderbeek here goes with rook c2. He's getting more and more forces on the second rank. And this also pins the knight because after all, f2 pawn might be hanging.
It's a tricky position. And Sviridov only needs a draw to make it into the final. But he is now under pressure, both on the board and on the clock.
Is it D2? Is it D2 wins on a spot?
Maybe we're going to test it out. The pawn moves forward and he just resigns. Ooh. He just resigns. I think that's a mistake for Sviridov to just resign there, because he could have just let his time run out. He could have tried to reset and try to make his mind ready for the 1 minute game. But instead he just resigns instantly. And I'm not sure if his mind is ready for a 1 minute matchup right now. But we're about to see, because the game has started. It's an Alyekin from the Russian, an early exchange of knights. It's over. Oh, why did he blunders? He blunders in the middle of the board. Sviridov made a huge tactical mistake there, resigning out of completely unnecessarily when he could have just taken a break. But on the other hand, there is some attack going on here with the Black Knight and Black Bishop, both, and they're going for a draw. Wow.
No.
What on earth is going on? Norderbeck is handed a free pawn in the middle of the board, and even so, he ends up making the early draw. What an escape for Sviridov. And we're going to have another game to decide who goes to the final.
Yeah, we're gonna have as much games as it takes the first win. The person who wins the first will get into the match with Badr Jobava. But oh God, what's happening here? There was a crazy situation, but also seems like White don't want to spend too much time, right, to figure out how to win that position. And he might regret this later.
Yeah, he might very well regret it, because now he has the black pieces, and Norderbeck is under a lot of pressure. White's bishops pointed in towards Black's position. Now the queen coming out to assist as well. The queen and bishops working together close to Black's king. The bishop now coming in, capturing an important pawn. More white pieces are joining the attack. White has a completely winning position. Norderbeck made a huge decision there, going for the early draw after being gifted a pawn initially. And I think he's going to regret that decision, because now it's all about Sviridov, who is up a pawn, but also has the superior pawn structure. But most importantly, in these 1 minute games, Sviridov has more time on the clock. And Sviridov is the first person to push the pawns forward on the side of the board. I don't think Yakubayev can come back from this. Actually, he can, because the rook comes over to the other side, and it's a threat of checkmate. It's a checkmate on the edge of the board, and he's not going to get out of it.
Dramatic.
And he's just thinking, you just needed to do something. I think one of the biggest mistakes Sviridov made in that situation was not that he got checkmated, but it was that he just didn't keep on playing. And it ends up being a victory for the Uzbeki player, as he creates a checkmate. No matter where White's king would have went, the black rook would have come down into the corner to give the decisive checkmate. It's Norderbeck versus Jobava in the final, and we're going to catch that action after this break. Winner Stays returns November 4th. This monthly event pits content creators of different chess levels head to head for their portion of the $3,000 event prize. Nemo and Dina Belenkaya will make their debut in the Masters section. Semai Reina will look for his second Winner Stays win against streamer Hannah Says. And Chris Ramsey takes on Tournament Arc 2 champion Gig UK. You won't want to miss this.
Right, welcome back at the grand final of Speed Chess Grand Prix, the fourth stage. And here we have Badr Jovova against Nadir Bag. We're going to see two games. And we might also see the tiebreak. What do you think? Do you think we're gonna see a tiebreak in this match in the final?
Well, judging by the semifinals, both going to the tiebreak, I'm gonna say yes. We're gonna see that.
Amazing! I'm up for it, and I think our chat is also up for it, and we really want to see more excitement. And indeed, bullet chess brings that excitement. In the first game, Badr Jovova is with 5 pieces. And here we have this opening.
It's an Italian attack from Jobava. And Black sacrifices a pawn for quick development. Jobava playing his moves very quickly, obviously prepared for this circumstance.
Yeah. What about this knight on h3? Like, is that okay for Italian game?
Well, this is a standard line, if somewhat old. And basically, white is claiming the fact that I won a pawn means that I can spend a lot of time trying to fix the situation with my knight. So Jobava moving his knight around basically in a circle, and the knight returns to where it started out, and being up a pawn, I think he's liking his chances here.
Yep, knight. White just managed to finally develop the pieces at the accurate place, but Black already pushed those pawns in the center. Do you think these pawns can create some kingside attack?
Well, that's what Black needs to have happen, right? Because Black has given up a pawn in the opening. If no kingside attack, Black is going to lose the game because you're missing a pawn. The question is how to execute the attack. And to me, that is not obvious. And that's why I prefer Jobava's position, because yes, Black has great central control, but at the end of the day, you're down a pawn, and it's not clear how you deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. White is trying to maneuvering a little bit here. Maybe at some point he can also push f4 just in case, not to lose that one if the bishop is open from c1, or just to remain this position with extra pawn. He's going with bishop f3 to free the square for the queen, and then to get the rook in the center as well.
Yeah, I would guess next move for Jobava is actually moving the rook immediately, because by moving the rook, then he enables his knight to have some maneuvering opportunities. But this is an interesting moment. The Uzbeki youngster may now try to make another sacrifice in the center. I thought Black maybe wanted to push forward with the pawn to e4. He chose another pawn push forward. And if anything, I think this pawn push was even better, because now these Black pawns are really able to push forward and really limit the scope of White's pieces. However, Norderbeck, he should now prevent White's move f4 because this f4 move, no, from White, because White wants now to block the position so that Black's attack is unable to happen. And this blockading move from Jabava, it's not really clear what could be done.
How about 94 in d5, some tactics here?
Yeah, that looks very clever. Because one of the biggest problems for White is what to do about the knight on d2. If we can make a trade with that knight, we would very much welcome that.
Yeah, White is thinking, I think he is considering that move, just calculating. There is also an option to push f4, which was the idea before, and with rook e1, knight f1, knight e3 to get this knight at a better position. But I would be personally afraid of g5 pawn coming forward on g5.
Yeah, I think previously when I said I liked White's position, that was before Norderbeck managed to create this, push his pawns even further forward. But Jabava, being presented with the opportunity to make some trickery,
there we go.
He accepts the challenge. He gets rid of his own knight, gives it away for a pawn, but then his own pawn is pushed forward in the center, making an attack on both Black's bishop and on Black's knight. And you cannot escape from those threats. It looks as though Jabava managed to get rid of his knight under very favorable circumstances.
Yeah.
And now White is just a pawn up.
Yeah. Later, bishop will get on d4. Beautiful square where this bishop will aim in g7. In any case, we can also get on b1 to control the b file. And another rook comes on e file to, at some point, attack this. I think White is just very good here.
Yeah, no, it looks devastating. The White pieces suddenly make sense, which wasn't really the case just a couple of moves ago. In addition, the time situation is very favorable for Jabava, who's up 40 seconds on the clock. And now he's putting all his effort into capturing the Black pawn in the middle. However, the Black rook has infiltrated and is now ready to capture the White pawn on the side of the board. So Jabava not feeling super confident about what the correct next step is. I'm going to say he keeps the queens on the board, or at least attempts to do so in order to have attacking chances.
Black being so annoying with this queen d7, queen f5, queen g5. In the end, Black managed to trade the queens. And here we have an endgame, and Black might try to find some way to hold the position.
Yeah, but no, Black can win this. I mean, Black is down a pawn, but the Black pawn is also the closest piece to becoming a new queen. I think this is very dangerous for Jabava. I think he needs to give up any hope he had of winning this game. He needs to now just make sure that at least he gets a draw, because the Black pawn on the side of the board is tremendously dangerous and needs to be taken very seriously.
Yeah, maybe he just captures here and then tries to push the pawn. But first they have centralized the kings. This might end badly for one side. Still, the action is still going on. Now gets to the king side camp. White will collect all these pawns.
It's impossible to tell what's going to happen. White has two pawns on the side.
Rook e3 was a possibility there. And I think this is simply winning for White.
The Black pawn hasn't gotten further on the side of the board, and now the White king has done a great job of eliminating the pawns on the opposite side. The White king making sure not to get in the way of his own pawns. Jabava is taking this game all the way to victory, and he's going to give a check now. The rook comes in. Okay.
Oh, that's gonna be a stalemate.
Is
That's
it?
gonna be a stalemate.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Oh my God, what a finish. An amazing game. Jobava slams his hand in his desk. He cannot believe he didn't manage to win that game. Tremendous tenacity from the young Uzbeki player Nordirbeck, who holds on.
What a fight! What a fight! Nordirbeck just put up on the board. This guy's talent. We have seen his over the board amazing performance at World Cup. But look at this, he's also very good at online chess. Amazing.
So we enter the second game. This could be the last game of this Speed Chess Championship Grand Prix Series. The winner here will take the knockout prize of $1,000.
That's right. That's a really good money for just 1 hour tournaments, I think. And they also get the prize from the Swiss tournament, right? So in the end, one player will get quite decent amount of money out of this tournament. And, what do you think? What's going to happen in this? Like, what are your thoughts? You think
It's a very tricky position strategically. The white pawn on c3 is what we call a backward pawn. And it's a pawn that is prone to being attacked, especially considering that the black can place a rook on c8, like Jabava just did, pointing down towards that pawn. On the other hand, black's bishop on g7 is not doing very well. It is right now pointing in towards a pawn in the middle that's protected by another pawn. So the black bishop is kind of just biting into a very rock solid pawn structure for white. And for that reason, I definitely prefer white's position, especially now, considering that white was able to capture the black pawn in the middle in exchange for giving up the pawn that on c3 that I wasn't such a fan of anyway.
Yeah, and here we have your favorite pair of bishop here. And do you think it is white who will try to go push for a win? Or black also has equal chances?
I think white has a brilliant position. He's choosing now between going for the rook into the c file or making an attack with his bishop. He chose to go with the rook, offers an exchange with the black rook. But if these rooks are exchanged, it's white who is left with control down the file. So Jabava, he chooses not to go with the trade. I think we will now see Nordirbeck getting rid of both rooks. No, he chooses to put pressure down the file. Jabava moving his pawn forward. Both players need to get their king into the action. And I think both players should get rid of the rooks. I definitely really like white's position. And I really like this last move from Nordirbeck. Because the bishop is headed for a6, where it will kick away the black rook. White will gain control of the c file. Ooh, yeah. Clever play by Jabava. He doesn't want to make the exchange between the rooks because then white's rook will be the only rook controlling the file. But it appears the white bishops are creating so many troubles towards the black rooks. And Jabava, through this bishop pressure Nordirbeck created, Jabava was forced to acquiesce to the exchange of rooks. And now white's bishops are fantastically placed. The black rook in the corner is completely out of play, as is the black knight on the edge. The knight is unable to get into where it really matters. And white is ready to get the king up into the middle. it's like every black piece is just bad.
Yeah, it doesn't have any target. They don't have target. They don't have moves. They are just stuck. Knight is out of the moves. Rook has moves, but it's on this rank. And the bishop has G7, F8 square. This is just so bad. And look at this. White decided to keep the bishop on F6. If black captures, then additional there is a pawn. And white's plan is maybe just to get this king centralized. But before that, white is making sure to get this rook on the 7th rank to even squeeze more black's position.
A dominating display so far by the Uzbeki player. And I think king e3 is the next move. And then he might even consider going bishop to d3 and bishop to e4 just to kick black's rook out of the corner. No, he just continues up the board with his king.
Do you think he will go farther?
No.
And then trade the rooks? And
surely not, right? Surely not.
F4 looks okay. Now the pawn is hanging. Let's start from here. Oh, then rook d4. No, it's not hanging.
Yeah, but there's also knight c6. I don't like that decision from Norderbeck because Jabava was able to get rid of an important white pawn in the middle. It still feels like a very good situation. Ooh, the trade of rooks, a big decision. But Norderbeck feels that considering that his king is so well placed in the middle, he could go for that exchange. However, he's now made a mistake, potentially. I think he's made a mistake because the black knight is able to get rid of white's pawn on the side of the board. No, and knight c3, a3, b5, I thought.
That's
but
smart.
Now Norderbeck manages to keep his pawn protected on the side of the board. I have no idea what's going
happening here. What's happening? This is just menace.
Yeah, the white king is just so good. I think this is game over. Norderbeck down to 19 seconds, but the white king now is ready to infiltrate and try to eliminate the black pawn on the left-hand side.
That's right. And bishop is trying to limit the knight more, but now the
bishop g6, bishop g6.
Game. Oh, it's on the board. Beautiful. And king has to come back on e8. Maybe king d8, second time repetition. Oh,
okay, we
might have another tie break today.
No. He's got this under control. We go again. Now the king. Oh no, Jabava manages to get rid of the last pawn on the left-hand side.
I'm not sure about e5. King c7
Knights
was
are
quite
so
safe
tricky.
There.
Knights are so tricky, but Norderbeck succeeds in eliminating Jabava's pawn, and now the bishop takes control of that. Ooh, but the trickery is not done. Oh my gosh, we're not done with the trickery. The bishop
King
moves both
c8 here and then e2.
Yeah, both players have dangerous pawns. White had to give away their bishop on the pawn, but Jabava gets his knight back in a position to cover for the pawn on the left-hand side. The question is whether Norderbeck is able to move his king over to the other side, and he's not able to do so. He shakes his head. He cannot believe it. Jabava saves an impossible game, but in some way it's justice because Norderbeck, he saved the impossible game in the first one. So we go to the tie breaks. It's one-minute game to decide everything here for $1,000.
That's exactly what we're going to have right now. And Joby moves with 1d4, bishop g5. He did this already in the previous game. And Norderbeck goes with c5. He once again gives up the dark square bishop. And Norderbeck is trying to control the center with f5, and then he fianchettos the bishop, and look at this, h4, h5. This game is going to be an amazing one. That's how it feels for now.
Yeah, a very slow start for Norderbeck. I don't like his pace here initially. He's already down 6 seconds, and 6 seconds may not feel that much, but the thing is, when you start with 60 seconds, 6 seconds already is a significant chunk of your time. But he's managed to equalize. Jobava spending more than 4 seconds on one move. Very good omen there for Norderbeck. There's exchanges going on the king side. There's pressure from White's bishop, from Black's bishop down towards the queen side. The evaluation bar is showing all Black, saying that Black is going to win this game. Black also succeeds in capturing one of those important pawn on the left-hand side, which means that Black now has a passed pawn. The Black pawn is ready to march up the board down the left-hand side. There's nothing Jobava can do about it. The pawn will be his...
Oh,
no, wait.
Look at this 96.
Wait.
There is some counterplay still that Jobava found. There are some checks. His queen got active, and there is a way. Not rook e1, obviously. Oh, queen!
The queen is attacked by the bishop, but the bishop gets out and he blunders the bishop. No, it wasn't a blunder because he managed to take the rook. But then Jobava had some attacks going on as well. But it's a checkmate in the end.
Checkmate.
Jobava is checkmated on the edge of the board. It doesn't really matter that he was checkmated. He was bound to lose on time anyway. And this Speed Chess Grand Prix has ended in dramatic fashion. It's Norderbek Yakuboyev from Uzbekistan who wins the $1,000 in the knockout stage. Congratulations to him. Amazing play in the tie breaks. Yeah.
Let's take a look once again how he managed to got into the finals and how he won the tournament. In the first game, he managed to win against Pavel Pontrakov and then Valery Sviridov, and then in the epic battle against Badr Jobava, he just showed his good game. It was a bit of luck as well, but look at this, the final game, he just outplayed Joby.
Congratulations to him. We're also going to be looking at the standings for this whole Grand Prix series. And it's Jeffrey Zhang who wins, counting all the 4 weeks together. Jeffrey has 2 second places and a first place. The consistency is amazing. And that consistency has earned him a place into the Speed Chess Championship main event, which will start in November.
Yeah, that's right. And I just saw the comment of exotic princess Badr Jobava, who congratulated his opponent in Chess.com chat. This is also a beautiful thing that after such a painful loss, you can still congratulate your opponent on a victory.
And we see this second place actually put Jobava into the second place of the overall Grand Prix standings. But in the end, it's Jeffrey's victory that is celebrated and awarded a spot into the main event.
Yeah, well done. Well played by Jeffrey. He did not even needed to play last tournament, 4th week. He just got the best out of 3 events. This is also quite impressive.
So that's it from us today.
Yeah, I guess that's it. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun. It was lovely to work with you. Ludwig, it was really, really lovely to work with you. And a lot of other exciting tournaments are just ahead of us.
So until the next time, see you around, everyone, and goodbye.